Tonight, the snow falls lightly against the old brick houses from another time. The year is coming to an end. 1901, the last sigh of the Victorian era. And far away, church bells chime through a world stuck between two periods. The lamps on the cobblestone streets shine like stars trapped under the peaceful sky, and the smell of burning pine floats through the cold air. Somewhere behind windows covered in frost, a kettle hums and kids' laughter floats like happy ghosts in the evening. Before we start our tale tonight, our trip back to the last Victorian Christmas, take a deep breath, get comfortable under your blanket, let your pillow support your head, and let the day slip into calm quiet. You're safe in this peaceful place of stories and snow. If you're tuning in from the United States, hello. If you're viewing from Europe, good evening. And to folks from Asia, Africa, Australia, or wherever the night is already dark, I'm happy you're here. Share in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you now. Before we head back to 1901, please like, subscribe, and share this if you like calm trips through history. It helps this little cozy spot of history expand, and it shows me you'd want more tales like this. Now, make your room dark, pull your blanket up, and slow your thoughts to a quiet voice. Hear the faint pop of a pretend fire, the soft sound of snow outside a window that's gone. Tonight, we'll step into a past Christmas, the final one before the new world came with its hurry and sound. Shut your eyes, sense the dance of candlelight, the smell of oranges and cloves, the light song of a carol in a cold December night. Welcome to Christmas 1901, the last Victorian Christmas. The first snow that December started before daybreak, coming down in a steady quiet that covered London in a silver calm. By the time the sun rose weakly over the edge, its faint light sparkled in the ice crystals stuck to rooftops, lampposts, and the twisting streets of Bloomsbury. Smoke came up from 1,000 chimneys, twisting slowly into the sky like gray ribbons. The world had that special winter silence, the type that makes it seem like even the air is taking a break. Inside a simple townhouse on Gower Street, a fire popped in a cast-iron grate. The room shone with the weak heat of the coals bouncing off brass picture frames and a mantel crowded with holly branches. A lone clock ticked gently, counting the last days of the century's peaceful end. Elellanena Whitby, covered in a wool shawl, stood by the window, seeing the snowflakes float past the glass, their pretty turns captivating. She had always liked this time of year, how it encouraged thinking back, how the world got slow enough for memories to talk. But this year, there was something else in the air, something calm, almost serious. It was the first Christmas without Queen Victoria, and all over the country, there was a feeling of goodbye. People talked about progress, machines, and the new century's hopes. But for Elellanena, it seemed like a door was shutting on an era she had just started to grasp. Down on the street, things moved in a soft way. A milkman's cart rolled by with a creak, its wheels pushing through the fresh snow. A little boy in a threadbare coat ran after it, laughing without breath. A woman with a basket of oranges called hellos to the grocer across the way. The city's smells, cold smoke, bread, wet wool, mixed in the air, making that special scent that was only London's in winter. Elellanena stepped away from the window and went to the small table by the fire. There, one envelope sat sealed with deep green wax. The writing on it, graceful, flowing, known, made her stop. She ran her finger over the name there. Elellanena Whitby, Gower Street, London. No address back, no name signed. Outside, the bells of St. George's started ringing noon. The sound spread through the frosty air, bringing the weight of time with it. Elellanena picked up the envelope, waited, then gently broke the seal. The paper inside was heavy, creamy, and lightly scented with lavender. The words were short. "Dearest Elellanena, if you would remember what was lost, come to Ashborne Hall before Christmas Eve." A friend. Her breath stopped. Ashborne Hall. It had been years since she heard that name. A spot from childhood winters, from laughter and candlelight, and the sounds of people long gone. As she put the letter back in its envelope, the clock chimed again, softly, persistently. And she knew this Christmas, the last of the old world, was going to pull her into something much deeper than old memories. The snow outside came down heavier now, covering the city in a white dream of silence. Somewhere past the rooftops, the Thames shimmered weakly under its mist cover, taking secrets to the sea. And in that instant, Elellanena knew this Christmas would not be about quiet recalling, but about coming awake. The fire had died down by evening, throwing long shadows that reached and moved against the wallpaper patterned with faded ivy. The air in the little townhouse was warm, filled with the smell of beeswax and wood smoke. Yet Elellanena felt a calm restlessness grow in her chest. She sat at the writing desk under the narrow window. The mysterious letter lay in front of her, its ink shining lightly in the light of one candle flame. Outside, London's winter night got darker. Gas lamps flickered under the falling snow, and the noise of carriage wheels turned to a soft rumble. Somewhere distant, the sound of a street musician's violin floated through the cold, a song old and sad, one that made Elellanena think of childhood evenings by the fire, her mother humming quietly while the world outside was covered in frost. She flipped the letter over and over, tracing the wax seal she had broken before. The writing brought back memories that wouldn't come clear. Ashborne Hall, a name from another life. A big house in the country, its windows always bright at Christmas, its rooms full of laughter and music. And the friend, who could it be? So many years had gone by since she last went there. She took a breath, calming herself. Maybe it was a pull of feeling, she thought. Maybe someone from those days recalled her kindly. But still, there was that sense in her heart, that small tug of something not done. Elellanena got up, pulling her shawl tighter around her shoulders, and went to the fire. The fire popped lightly, letting out a small spark into the air. She knelt and put the letter carefully on top of the small writing box she kept there. A keepsake from her late father, its brass corners worn by time. Inside were old postcards, dried flowers, and one miniature portrait in a silver frame. Her mother smiling lightly, the light in her eyes forever young. "Would you remember what was lost?" she said out loud, repeating the letter's words. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper, but it carried through the room's stillness. In the quiet that came after, she could hear the light ticking of the mantel clock, the sigh of wind against the glass, the city outside, alive but far. Maybe she would go. Maybe this time she would let the past call her back. She reached for her journal and started writing, her handwriting graceful and careful, the pen scratching softly on the paper. December 21st, 1901. Snow keeps falling. I got a letter with no name from someone who calls themselves a friend. They asked me to go back to Ashborne Hall. It has been 17 years since I left those rooms, and yet tonight it feels like no time has gone by at all. She stopped, the pen hanging. A light chill came into the room despite the fire. The candle flickered. Somewhere above, the wood of the ceiling made a low, settling sound. Elellanena looked toward the window. Through the frost-blurred glass, she thought she saw movement, maybe a figure walking by in the snow. But when she leaned closer, there was nothing, only the endless white and the faint reflection of her own face staring back. She smiled lightly, shook her head, and went back to her writing. Tomorrow she decided she would pack her things. She would take the morning train from King's Cross to Derbyshire, and from there head to the old estate. Whatever was at Ashborne Hall, truth, memory, or just the comfort of something known, she would meet it as the candle burned low. The last line she wrote was almost a prayer. May the snow be kind and the past gentle. She shut the journal, put out the flame, and the room went dark, except for the faint orange glow of the embers. Outside, the snow kept falling, soft, endless, and dreamlike, over a city on the edge of change, over a woman about to face her ghosts. Morning arrived softly, pale light spilling across the frost-covered window pane. The snow had slowed during the night, leaving London muffled and still, as if the city had taken a long, restful breath. Elellanena woke early, the faint chill of dawn touching her cheeks. Her breath misted in the air as she got up, wrapping herself in a wool cloak the color of pine smoke. Today she would head to Ashborne Hall. The station was busy with a quiet hum when she got there. King's Cross, always buzzing with travelers' voices and the hiss of steam, felt oddly dreamlike under its arched roof. The smell of coal and damp wool mixed with that faint metallic bite of winter air. Porters pushed carts loaded with trunks and hat boxes, while travelers in long coats spoke in low, quick tones. Yet through it all, Elellanena felt a steady calm. She held her small travel case in gloved hands, its leather smooth from years of use, and looked up at the departure board, the 9:30 train to Derbyshire, platform 4. Her pulse sped up. It had been so long since she'd seen those rolling fields, those long areas of moor and forest, where snow stayed for weeks. The train waited for her, black and shining, steam curling like ghostly ribbons around the wheels. She climbed aboard. The faint warmth from the car's stove was a welcome comfort. Inside, velvet seats and mahogany trim suggested quiet luxury. A few other passengers were scattered in the carriage, a young mother calming a sleeping child, an older gentleman reading a newspaper, a soldier looking out the window absently, his gloved hand on a small parcel tied with twine. Elellanena sat near the window. As the whistle blew, the carriage lurched softly, and the city started to slip away. Brick and smoke blurring into the soft gray of morning. The rhythm of the rails soon turned into a lullaby. Clack, 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 steady, endless. She watched the edges of London fade into open country, where the snow lay thick on the fields. Church steeples rose from far villages, their bells faint and comforting. Along the hedges, sparrows darted like sparks against the white spread. As the miles went by, her thoughts wandered. She recalled Ashborne Hall as it had been when she was a child, the great yew tree by the gate, the laughter coming from the music room, the sound of her mother's piano filling the halls. But under those memories were others less bright, whispers of a winter long ago, of a letter that had once gone unanswered, and of someone she had lost in the snow. The train slowed as it reached the northern valleys. Frost sparkled on the telegraph wires like strings of glass beads. The air got colder, sharper, as if the century itself was taking its last breath before turning the page. At a small country station, she got off. The sign read, Ashborne Halt, its black paint faded and chipped. Only a few passengers stepped down into the drifting snow. A single carriage waited nearby, its driver bundled in a thick coat, reins in hand. "Miss Whitby," he called, his voice muffled by scarf and fog. "Yes," she replied, her voice soft but sure. "I believe you're from the hall." "Aye, miss," the driver nodded. "Been told to fetch you soon as the morning train came in." She smiled faintly and stepped into the carriage. The leather seat creaked under her weight, and as the horse started pulling them through the whitened countryside, she caught her first glimpse of it, distant through the veil of snow. Ashborne Hall, standing tall on the hill, its chimneys sending pale smoke into the frozen air. It looked just as she remembered, grand, lonely, and waiting. The journey's rhythm lulled her into a daydream. Each turn of the wheels brought her closer, not only to the hall, but to the buried parts of her heart she had long closed away. When they reached the gates, she took a slow breath. The iron bars were frosted, the crest above them barely visible under years of weathering. Yet, as the carriage passed through, she felt something move in her chest, a shiver of knowing and perhaps of warning. Somewhere in that great house, the past had been waiting, and tonight it would stir. The carriage came to a gentle stop before the great oak doors of Ashborne Hall, its wheels half buried in snow. For a moment, Elellanena just sat there, looking through the small frosted window at the grand old house that had stayed so long in her mind. The building rose like a solemn guard from the white landscape, 3 stories of stone and ivy, its windows shining faintly with the amber light of fire inside. The tall chimneys sent thin columns of smoke into the cold air, and the smell of wood fire drifted lightly on the breeze. The driver got down, crunching across the snow to open her door. "Watch your step, miss," he said kindly, offering a gloved hand. Elellanena took it, her boots sinking softly into the drifts as she stepped out. The cold bit at her cheeks, sharp but fresh. She pulled her cloak tighter and tilted her head back, taking in the view of the old estate, unchanged yet older, somehow quieter. The sound of the wind through the yew filled her ears. For a quick second, she pictured the laughter of her childhood winters echoing across the courtyard. Her mother's soft voice, her father's deep tone, the crackle of firelight spilling through the great hall windows. But those sounds belonged to another time, and the world now stood hushed in reverent stillness. The great doors opened with a low groan, and a figure stepped out onto the threshold. It was Mrs. Pembroke, the housekeeper, her silver hair neatly coiled under her cap, her posture proud despite the years that had softened her face. "Miss Whitby," she said with a faint, surprised smile. "Heavens above, I scarcely believed it would be you." Elellanena returned the smile gently. "It's been a very long time, Mrs. Pembroke." "That it has," the woman said, stepping aside to let her in. "Come in, child, before the cold takes your breath." The moment Elellanena crossed the threshold, the air changed. The warmth from the fires inside wrapped around her like a living hug, carrying the faint smell of pine, spice, and candle wax. The great entrance hall stretched before her, polished oak floors, tall mirrors in gilt frames, garlands of evergreen draped along the balustrade. The portraits of ancestors still watched from their frames, their painted eyes gleaming softly in the flickering firelight. Mrs. Pembroke took her cloak, shaking the snow gently from its hem. "Your room has been made ready, miss. We didn't quite know when to expect you, but we kept it warm just in case." Elellenena's heart lifted lightly. "You expected me?" "Not I, miss," Mrs. Pembroke said, lowering her voice slightly. "But someone did. A letter came down from London 3 days ago with instructions to prepare for your arrival. No name signed, mind you, but the handwriting. It had a certain familiarity to it." Elellanena hesitated. "Did it now?" The woman nodded, studying her face. "Strange business, if you ask me, but it's Christmas, and strange things do happen about this house come winter." The housekeeper's words stayed like the echo of a bell as they went into the drawing room. The fire there burned happily, its glow moving across velvet drapes and dark mahogany furniture. On a small table, a tray of tea steamed beside a plate of currant biscuits. Elellanena moved closer to the fire, her hands out to the warmth. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the tall mirror above the mantel, framed by garland and candlelight. From somewhere deeper in the house came the soft strains of a piano, an old tune, slow and sweet. The notes drifted through the hall like a sigh. Elellanena froze. The melody was unmistakable. Her mother's song. She turned toward Mrs. Pembroke, but the housekeeper's expression told her everything. She too heard it. "No one's played that in years," the woman whispered. The music faltered, one key striking slightly off. Then it stopped as suddenly as it had begun. Silence returned, heavy and watchful. Elellanenna's heart beat faster. Somewhere within these ancient walls, the past was stirring softly, quietly, like footsteps in the snow. And she knew, without understanding why, that she was not the only one who had returned to Ashborne Hall. For a long while, the echoes of the piano stayed in Elellanenna's mind, like breath on glass, fragile, fading, yet hard to forget. The soft hush that followed felt almost sacred, as if the house itself were holding its breath. She turned toward the hallway leading deeper into the east wing, her heart steady but curious. "Mrs. Pembroke?" she asked quietly. "Who's staying in the east rooms now? I thought they'd been closed for years." The housekeeper hesitated, her eyes glancing toward the corridor where the music had come from. "They were, miss, since before the old master passed. No one's had reason to open them, not in an age." Elellanena frowned gently. "Then who played?" Mrs. Pembroke's lips pressed together, her voice barely above a whisper. "Some say it's just the wind through the chimney flue. Others say the hall remembers its own songs. It's best not to wander alone at night, Miss Whitby. These old stones hold memories stronger than most hearts can bear." Her tone was soft but certain, the kind born of a lifetime spent keeping old houses and older secrets. She poured tea for Elellanena, her hands steady despite the tremor in her words. "Drink, dear. You'll catch your chill otherwise." Elellanena nodded, though her thoughts had already wandered. When the tea was finished and Mrs. Pembroke went to bed for the night, she found herself standing again at the base of the staircase, candle in hand, drawn by some quiet pull she could not name. The flame flickered as she went up, casting gentle circles of light on the garlands hung along the banister. The east wing waited beyond a narrow hall colder than the rest of the house. The air there was sharp and still, carrying that faint scent of time, dust, wax, and wood long unpolished. The carpets muffled her steps, yet every board under her foot gave a soft, weary sigh. Halfway down the corridor she paused. A piano note, just one, rose faintly from behind a closed door. Then another, slowly, hesitantly, forming the start of that same familiar melody. Elellanenna's breath caught. She knew this room. It had once been her mother's music chamber, the one with the tall windows overlooking the lake. She approached the door, her candlelight trembling against the handle. With a gentle push, the door creaked open. The room inside was shrouded in dust and silent. White sheets covered the furniture like ghosts at rest, and the piano stood near the window, its lid half open. Keys streaked with years of disuse, yet the faint sense of movement still hung in the air, as if someone had just stood up from the bench. She stepped closer, her gloved hand reaching to brush the dust from the instrument's edge. The keys were cold under her fingertips. A single note chimed softly at her touch, clear, crystalline, alive. For a heartbeat, she felt warmth fill her chest. Memory coming back so vividly it almost hurt. Her mother's laughter, her father's baritone hum, the smell of oranges and beeswax and evergreen. Then she saw it, a faint mark on the piano's closed lid, a ring like one left by a teacup. Fresh. Her candle flickered. Somewhere beyond the hall, a floorboard groaned. "Who's there?" she called softly. Only silence answered, the kind of silence that listens. She pulled the door halfway shut and took a slow breath, steadying herself. Perhaps the mind played tricks in places like this, houses that had seen so much joy and grief that the air itself learned to whisper. Still, when she turned to leave, something caught her eye, a small folded piece of paper resting on top the covered stool. She unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was the same elegant script as the first letter. You remember the song, Follow Where It Leads. The candle's flame danced, a soft pulse of light in the shadowed room. Elellanena folded the note and pressed it to her chest, her heart beating slow and deep. Whatever waited here, she thought, it knew her past better than she did, and it wanted her to find it. The next afternoon, as twilight pressed gently against the windows, Elellanena wandered the long halls of Ashborne Hall, candle in hand. The hours had passed in a quiet haze, unpacking her small belongings, sharing luncheon with Mrs. Pembroke by the drawing-room fire, and listening to the wind hum softly through the chimneys like a distant organ. Yet beneath it all, that same quiet pull tugged at her, a sense of unfinished melody, of something waiting just beyond the edge of sight. Her steps carried her toward the portrait gallery, one of the oldest parts of the house. Few dared linger there after sunset. The corridor was long and narrow, lined on both sides with oil paintings of ancestors whose faces gazed down through layers of varnish and shadow. The air there was cooler, still tinged with the faint perfume of linseed oil and thyme. Her candle flame wavered as she entered. The portraits seemed to lean closer in the flickering light, the gentlemen in their powdered wigs, the ladies with lace and pearls, each captured at the height of life, their painted eyes forever watchful. The silence pressed deep here, broken only by the faint creak of wood as the house settled in its bones. At the far end of the gallery hung a larger portrait, half veiled by dust and cobwebs. Elellanena approached, recognizing the frame's intricate carving of holly and ivy, her father's commission years ago to honor his beloved wife. She raised the candle higher. Her mother's face looked out from the canvas, serene and radiant, her hands resting on the polished surface of a piano. The artist had captured the softness of her expression perfectly, the slight turn of her lips, the light in her eyes that seemed to follow wherever one stood. Beneath it in gold script read, Margaret Whitby, 1865, 1884. Elellanenna's throat tightened. She reached up, brushing the edge of the frame, and whispered, I remember, Mama. As the words left her lips, something curious happened. The candle flame stilled, utterly motionless, as though the air itself had ceased to move. Then a faint shimmer, delicate as the reflection of light on glass, rippled across the portrait's surface. For just a moment, Elellanena thought she saw her mother's painted hand move, fingers shifting ever so slightly, resting upon the same single piano key that had chimed in the east wing the night before. The illusion passed as quickly as it came. The flame flickered again, and the chill of the gallery returned. But when Elellanena looked down, she noticed something new, a small folded square of paper resting against the baseboard where none had been before. Her heart steadied. She knelt and picked it up. The paper was thick and finely made, its edges faintly singed as if touched by candle flame. Opening it, she found the same familiar script. The melody was not finished. Seek the page that fell. A slow breath left her lips. The page that fell. She thought of the old music room, of the piano whose song had stopped midway through. She looked once more at her mother's portrait, now silent and still in the candlelight. All right, she whispered softly. I'll follow. As she turned to leave the gallery, a clock somewhere deep within the house began to chime the hour. 5, so. each toll echoing like a heartbeat through the old corridors. Elellanena felt neither fear nor haste now, only a strange calmness, as though every step she took was guided by hands unseen. Outside, dusk deepened to violet, and snow began to fall once more, whispering against the tall windows of Ashborne Hall. Night had deepened by the time Elellanena returned to the east wing. The air there felt cooler, carrying the scent of dust in long, unopened rooms. Her candle cast soft halos of gold on the dark wood paneling as she walked, her footsteps slow and deliberate. The echo of the gallery's silence still clung to her mind, the words from the note repeating in her thoughts like a rhythm. Seek the page that fell. The door to the music room stood slightly ajar this time, as though someone or something had been there since she last visited. The faintest draft whispered through the opening, making the flame quiver. She stepped inside. Moonlight streamed faintly through the frost-blurred windows, mingling with the candle's soft glow. The white dust sheet still draped the furniture. But now, on the floor near the piano, she noticed something new. A scatter of papers, their edges curled and yellowed, half hidden beneath the bench. Elellanena knelt, her hand brushing aside the layer of dust that had settled over them. Sheet music. The title read in faded ink, Nocturne for Winter's End, her mother's composition. She remembered it now, the unfinished melody her mother used to hum on winter nights, never writing the final bars. The song had faded with her illness, and after her passing the music had been packed away with other keepsakes. Yet here it lay, as if time itself had gathered it back into her path. Elellanena lifted one page at a time, setting them carefully on top the piano's lid. Each sheet bore her mother's elegant handwriting, notes scrolled with precision and tenderness. But when she reached the final page, she found it torn. Half the measures missing, the lower corner burned away, and beneath it, tucked just out of sight, was a small scrap of paper, thin, uneven, as if hastily torn from a notebook. She drew it out. The handwriting there was not her mother's, but the same graceful script that had penned the other letters. The melody ends where the heart began. Look to the place where warmth first found you. Elellanena rose slowly, the paper trembling slightly in her hand. Where warmth first found me, she murmured. Her mind turned over the words, searching, remembering. And then it came to her, the nursery, the room where she had spent her earliest winters before her mother's illness, where laughter had filled the air and the great hearth had burned day and night, a place of lullabies and gentle voices, long since closed after the family's grief had hollowed the hall. Her heart beat softly like a slow drum in the quiet. She set the sheet music neatly aside and turned toward the corridor. The east wing lay hushed, the house breathing faintly around her. As she passed each door, she thought she felt the air change, warmer here, cooler there, as if unseen memories stirred in her wake. The candlelight brushed across gilt frames and faded wallpaper, revealing glimpses of a life suspended between years. When she reached the nursery door, her steps faltered. The wooden handle was cold beneath her palm, untouched for what must have been decades. She turned it gently. The door opened with a sigh. Inside, the air was faintly sweet, lavender and old linen. The walls were pale blue, the paint cracked with age. A rocking horse stood in the corner, its mane faded, its saddle worn smooth. The old toy chest sat beneath the window, its brass hinges dulled. And there, upon the hearthstone, lay a single music page, crisp, white, untouched by time. Elellanena approached slowly, every heartbeat echoing in the stillness. She knelt to pick it up. The paper was warm to the touch, impossibly so, as if it had just been placed there moments ago. Across the top, in her mother's unmistakable hand, was written, "Finale to be played at Christmas." A faint sound drifted through the room. Then, the gentle plink of a piano key struck once, far away from the east wing. The melody was calling her home. Elellanena sat before the nursery hearth for a long while, her candle resting beside her on the cold stone floor. The flames in the great hearth had died long ago, yet the faint warmth from the music page in her hands seemed to replace it, a quiet inner heat that pulsed gently like a heartbeat. The edges of the paper caught the light, gold and tender, as if remembering its own creation. She turned it carefully. The notes on the page shimmered faintly in the candle's glow, an unfinished line of melody, gentle and haunting. Her mother's handwriting looped elegantly between the staves, and beneath it, in the lower margin, a single phrase had been written in smaller letters. For Elellanena, when the snow returns. Her throat tightened. It was impossible. Her mother had passed before Elellenena's 10th Christmas, before this century had even begun. Yet here was her name, written with such loving certainty, waiting across 17 winters. The wind murmured faintly beyond the window panes, brushing snowflakes against the glass. The room seemed to breathe with her. Each small sound, the soft creak of timber, the whisper of frost, felt alive, as though the house was gently remembering her presence. She stood and crossed to the toy chest. Its lid opened with a low groan, the hinges reluctant but obedient. Inside lay relics of her childhood, a small china doll with a cracked cheek, a tin soldier missing an arm, and a small faded blanket embroidered with her initials. Beneath them, something glimmered faintly. A small music box, its brass lid tarnished with age. She lifted it free and brushed away the dust. When she turned the key at its base, the mechanism resisted, then gave way with a soft click. The melody that spilled forth was broken, faint, a few wavering notes that faltered halfway through. Yet it was familiar. The same nocturne her mother had composed, the same song that had haunted the piano keys in the east wing. Tears rose unbidden, soft and silent. "Oh, Mamma," she whispered, the words barely sound at all. The candlelight wavered, casting soft ripples of gold along the nursery walls. For a heartbeat, she thought she saw movement, a figure seated by the hearth, the faint outline of a woman's shape, silver hair catching the firelight that wasn't there. It faded almost at once, dissolving into dust and moonlight. Elellanena took a slow, steadying breath. She set the page gently on top the music box and closed her hands over both. "I'll finish it," she said softly. "I promise." Outside, the wind stilled. The snow fell in silence, heavy and endless, wrapping the world in peace. From somewhere deep within the house, a clock began to strike 6, the tone slow, sonorous, and steady. It echoed through the halls like a measured heartbeat. And as the last chime faded, Elellanena felt a subtle change in the air. The warmth from the page spread up her arm, through her chest, to her throat, a quiet pulse that was neither frightening nor strange, only familiar. It was as if the house itself approved. She rose, holding the music box in one hand and the final sheet in the other. The candle flame flared briefly, then steadied, casting her shadow long and tall upon the wall behind her. The melody in her mind returned, full now, gentle, complete, and glowing with memory. It was time to go back to the piano. Elellanena carried the music box and the final sheet back down the narrow corridor of the east wing. The candle in her other hand painted soft pools of light on the dark wood paneling, illuminating portraits whose painted eyes seemed to follow her as she moved. The house felt alive in a quiet way. The settling of the floorboards, the faint sigh of the wind through the chimneys, the distant creak of a shutter in the night. At the doorway of the music room, she paused. The air was cooler here, tinged with the faint scent of old pine and the lingering warmth of past fires. The piano stood waiting, majestic and patient, as though it had known she would return. She set the candle on the ledge above the keys and laid the music box gently on top the closed lid. The faint ticking of a clock somewhere deep in the hall measured her hesitation. Finally, with a breath that trembled like a whisper, she opened the piano's lid. Dust motes drifted through the candlelight, tiny stars suspended in air. Her fingers hovered over the keys, hesitant yet drawn forward by the melody in her memory. She placed the first page of the Nocturne carefully on the music rack. Each note seemed to resonate with the soft hum of the room, vibrating faintly in the air like an invisible thread. Slowly, she began to play. The notes were delicate, cautious, unfolding like snowflakes in a silent sky. The piano's voice filled the room, carrying with it the warmth of candlelight and the memory of her mother's hands. When she reached the final sheet, the one that had waited in the nursery, she paused. The notes were faintly unfinished, waiting for her touch to complete them. Elellanena inhaled, letting the rhythm of the house and her own heartbeat guide her. She played, each note steady, flowing into the next. The melody wrapped around her like a soft shawl, comforting and familiar, yet thrilling with the unknown. Outside, the snow tapped softly against the windows, a gentle accompaniment. Inside, the walls seemed to lean closer, listening. The air smelled faintly of beeswax and pine, of firelight and lavender, as if all the small comforts of the hall had gathered to witness this quiet resurrection of sound. Halfway through, Elellanenna's mind drifted, not with distraction, but with remembrance. She saw her mother at the keys, humming softly, her fingers poised like delicate birds above the ivory. She saw her father smiling by the fire, the glow of candlelight on his face. She saw the little girl she once had been, curled on the rug, listening to the world bend around her in warmth and music. The final notes came slowly, deliberately, lingering in the air before fading into silence. Elellanenna's fingers hovered above the keys for a moment longer, feeling the resonance still trembling beneath them. Then she leaned back, breath catching, a tear sliding softly down her cheek. It was finished. The music box resting on top the piano let out a soft final note in perfect harmony, as though affirming her work. The warmth that had pulsed from the page seemed to spread into the room itself, filling it with the quiet peace of completion. Elellanena rose and set the candle beside the music box, letting the soft glow linger on the polished wood. Outside, the snow continued to fall, muffling the world in white, gentle silence. For the first time since her arrival, Ashborne Hall felt fully awake. Not haunted, not waiting, but alive with memory, warmth, and quiet joy. Elellanena sat for a while longer, listening to the faint echo of the melody, her heartbeat slow and steady, her mind at rest. The house seemed to sigh in approval, a deep, contented sound that vibrated through the floors and walls, through her very bones. And somewhere deep inside, she knew the hall had waited all these years for her to return, to finish what had begun long before she could remember. The soft echo of the piano lingered in Elellanenna's ears as she made her way back to the main wing. The hallways seemed warmer now, the shadows gentler, as if the house itself had exhaled after the music's completion. Mrs. Pembroke met her at the foot of the staircase, carrying a small tray of silver and china. "Ah, there you are, miss," she said softly, her eyes crinkling with a faint smile. "I thought you might need something to warm your stomach and your spirits after that performance." Elellanena returned the smile, feeling the tension of the day ease. "Thank you, Mrs. Pembroke. That was very thoughtful." The tray bore a small supper, steaming bowls of creamy potato soup, thick slices of brown bread, and a pot of fragrant tea. The aroma of butter and roasted herbs mingled with the lingering scent of candle wax and wood smoke, filling the air with comfort. Elellanena settled into a high-backed chair, savoring the warmth that rose from the bowls and cups, the simple act of eating in the quiet grandeur of the hall. As she sipped her tea, the house seemed to whisper around her. Faint draughts carried the scent of pine and snow from the outside, mingling with the spice of cinnamon and clove from the kitchen. She listened to the soft ticking of the long case clock nearby, the subtle creaks of floorboards settling, the occasional rustle of a curtain in the drafty windows. "Do you know," Mrs. Pembroke said after a pause, "that some say the hall itself waits for Christmas, that it keeps memories safe, tucked in the corners until the season calls them back?" Elellanena turned her gaze to the older woman. "I've begun to believe it," she said quietly. "There's a presence here, a kindness, a gentle watchfulness. It's as though it knew I would return." The housekeeper nodded, her eyes distant. "Aye, miss. That's why I never leave this wing unattended in winter. The hall has its moods, its whispers. It listens, it remembers, and sometimes it guides." The soup cooled slowly, but Elellanena hardly noticed. She traced the rim of her cup, letting the quiet wrap around her like a blanket. Outside, the snow pressed softly against the windows. The world hushed and calm. The halls seemed to breathe with her, in rhythm with her heartbeat, a gentle companion in the fading light. After supper she rose and carried the empty tray back to the kitchen, her footsteps muffled by the thick rug. Mrs. Pembroke watched her with a faint smile. "You've had a long day, Miss Whitby. Rest well tonight. Tomorrow the hall may have more to show you, more memories to stir." Elellanena nodded, her eyes drawn once more to the flickering firelight. "I think I am ready," she said softly. "I want to see all of it." And as she climbed the staircase to her room, the snow continued to fall, gentle, relentless, and soft against the tall windows. The hall seemed alive with anticipation, its old heart beating quietly alongside her own, waiting to reveal its stories, its warmth, its last Victorian Christmas. Elellanenna's bedroom was a quiet haven at the top of Ashborne Hall. The tall sash windows were frosted with intricate patterns delicate as lace, and the faint moonlight spilling through painted the walls in silvery blue. Her bed, draped in a heavy quilt, smelled faintly of lavender and beeswax, and the small fireplace in the corner emitted a soft, comforting warmth. She placed the music box and the final sheet of the Nocturne carefully on the bedside table. The soft golden glow from the candle reflected on the polished brass fixtures, casting gentle shadows that danced across the walls. For the first time since her arrival, Elellanena allowed herself to sink into the bed, pulling the quilt snug around her shoulders. The house was quiet now, but alive in subtle ways. The gentle creak of the roof as it settled under the weight of snow, the soft sigh of the wind threading through the chimneys, the distant chime of the hall clock marking the passage of time. Each sound was familiar, yet new, a lullaby whispered by the hall itself. She closed her eyes and let the day's events wash over her. The train journey, the first glimpse of the hall, the music room, the discovery of the final page, and the quiet supper by the fire. Each memory settled into her mind like soft snow on a quiet street, peaceful yet full of latent energy. Somewhere in the distance, a faint note of a piano drifted through the corridors. A single key struck, lingering in the air, then fading. Elellanena smiled, recognizing the echo of the Nocturne she had just completed. The hall was acknowledging her, welcoming her as part of its living memory. She reached for the folded note from the nursery once more, tracing the elegant script with her fingers. The melody ends where the heart began. Look to the place where warmth first found you. She thought again of the nursery, of the hearth where she had first learned what it felt like to be safe, to be loved, to be at home. Elellanena drew a deep, slow breath and let it out with a soft sigh. The warmth from the quilt and the candle, the faint scent of lavender, and the quiet presence of the hall enveloped her like a protective cloak. Outside, the snow fell endlessly, each flake a tiny whisper of the season, muffling the world beyond Ashborne Hall. Inside, the house seemed to lean closer, its walls holding her safely in memory and comfort. As her eyelids grew heavy, Elellanena let her mind drift, imagining the music filling the hall once more, the gentle echoes of the past weaving around her. Here in this room, the last Victorian Christmas felt alive, waiting to unfold in the quiet hours of the night. And with that thought, she surrendered to sleep, the candle flame flickering softly beside her, the hall breathing gently in rhythm with her own heart. The house settled into silence as midnight approached. Elellanena slept softly, the quilt tucked around her shoulders, her hand resting lightly on the music box. Outside, the snow shimmered under the pale moonlight, coating the hall in a blanket of quiet silver. Deep within Ashborne Hall, the corridors seemed to shift and sigh. The old timbers whispered to one another, echoing through the empty wings. Somewhere in the distance, the faintest scraping of a chair, or perhaps a drawer being nudged, carried on the still air. It was subtle, delicate, almost polite. Yet Elellanena, half asleep, stirred and opened her eyes. Moonlight poured through the frosted windows, spilling across the quilt and the polished wood of her furniture. She could see the shadows moving gently, swaying like dark dancers across the walls. Her heartbeat slowed, the calm of the hall enveloping her as she listened. Then she heard it, a faint whisper, barely audible, curling through the room. Elellanena. Her breath caught. She sat up slowly, the candle flame dancing as though it too had heard the call. The voice was soft, familiar, comforting, not frightening. It carried warmth, the memory of a mother's lullaby, a friend's encouragement, a past that had never fully left her side. She rose from the bed, candle in hand, and moved toward the door. The corridor stretched before her, deep and shadowed, lined with portraits whose eyes seemed to glow faintly in the moonlight. She paused, listening. The whisper came again, weaving through the hall. Follow the melody. It waits. Her hand trembled slightly as she opened the nursery door. The room was still as she had left it, moonlight bathing the faded toys and the quiet hearth. Yet the music box, resting on top the piano's lid, let out a single soft note without winding. The sound was faint, delicate, calling her forward like a thread, pulling gently at her heart. Elellanena knelt beside it, tracing the keys with her fingers. The faint vibration of the note lingered in the air, and she realized that the hall was guiding her, not just through memory, but through something deeper, something hidden in the very walls. A soft breeze rustled through the window, though it was tightly closed. The scent of pine and lavender mingled in the air, wrapping around her like a quiet embrace. She allowed herself to breathe in deeply, feeling the warmth of the house and the whisper of the melody through her very bones. Somewhere deep in the hall, as if in answer, a faint tapping began, a slow, rhythmic knock echoing through the floors and walls. Elellanena paused, listening carefully. The sound was not alarming, it was gentle, precise, almost beckoning. The music, the whisper, the tap. They were all calling her forward. The hall was alive tonight, alive with memory and expectation. Elellanena rose, and moved toward the east wing once more, candle held high. Each step carried her closer to the unseen presence that had waited all these years for her return. And as the snow continued to fall outside, muffling the world in silence, Elellanena felt the quiet certainty that the last Victorian Christmas held more secrets yet to reveal. Elellenena's footsteps were soft against the worn carpet as she followed the gentle tap that seemed to echo from somewhere deeper within the east wing. The candlelight stretched her shadow across the walls, painting it long and wavering like a companion walking beside her. The whisper of the hall, the faint murmur of old wood and wind through the chimneys, seemed to grow more insistent, guiding her onward. At the end of the corridor, a tall carved door stood slightly ajar. Through it, Elellanena could glimpse rows upon rows of books. The East Wing Library, a room she had only seen glimpses of as a child. The scent of old leather and parchment, mingled with faint hints of lavender polish, drifted toward her. It was a smell that spoke of patience and secrets, of knowledge waiting quietly for someone to discover it. She stepped inside. The room was grand, yet cozy, with dark oak shelves reaching nearly to the ceiling. A ladder on rails rested against one wall. Dust motes floated like tiny stars in the candlelight. A fire burned faintly in the hearth, casting flickering reflections across gilded spines and faded illustrations. And there, on top a small writing desk by the window, she saw it. Another note, this one laid upon a stack of leather-bound volumes. The paper was familiar, the same elegant script. The final note is hidden where words meet warmth. Seek the book that remembers your name. Elellenena's heart quickened. She moved carefully among the shelves, her gloved fingers brushing the spines of countless tomes, some ancient and brittle, some familiar from her childhood. Titles gleamed faintly in the firelight. The Winters of England, Tales of the Hearth, Songs and Ballads of Old London. Her eyes settled on a modest volume near the top of a shelf, its leather cover unadorned, except for the faint impression of her initials. E.W. The spine creaked as she drew it down. Inside, a folded sheet of music fell free, drifting to the desk like a feather. It was another piece, a short prelude composed by her mother, the notes delicate and soft with a single line unfinished, awaiting completion. Elellenena's fingers traced the delicate script, and she felt that same warmth pulsing through her chest, the gentle insistence of the hall surrounding her. A whisper, soft as the turning of a page, seemed to float from the shelves themselves. Complete the song, complete the memory. Elellanena folded the music carefully and tucked it into her coat. She glanced once more at the firelit room, the shelves, the quiet heart of Ashborne Hall. There was more here than she could yet understand, more waiting for her touch, for her memory, for her presence. The hall was alive with stories, with music, with echoes of those long gone, and Elellanena knew she would follow every whisper, every note, every hidden memory, until the last Victorian Christmas had revealed its full song. Outside, the snow fell heavier now, settling upon the tall windows like powdered lace. Inside, Elellanena felt a warmth that no winter chill could touch. Elellanena left the library with the folded prelude clutched carefully in her hands. The candlelight stretched long shadows across the corridor as she made her way back toward the music room. The snow outside had grown heavier, drifting softly against the tall windows, muffling the distant hum of the night. Halfway down the hall, she paused at a large gilt-framed mirror that hung near the staircase landing. Its glass was aged, faintly fogged, but still reflected the candlelight in soft, warm pools. Elellanena gazed into it, her own reflection shimmering in the wavering light. For a moment she thought she saw something else, another figure, faint and ephemeral, standing just behind her. She blinked, and the image vanished. Only her own face remained, pale in the candlelight, eyes wide with curiosity and the gentle thrill of anticipation. The reflection, however fleeting, left a trace in her mind, a subtle reminder that the hall held more than just empty rooms and memories. It held presence, intention, and the weight of unseen watchers. Elellanena adjusted the quilted shawl around her shoulders and continued down the hall. Her steps were quiet, careful, yet she felt the house bending subtly around her, guiding her, holding her hand in a way invisible but unmistakable. Every creak of the floorboards, every sigh of the timbers, every whisper of wind through the tall chimneys seemed like a soft encouragement. When she reached the music room, she paused again. The piano awaited, calm and patient. The candle flickered against the polished wood, throwing gentle reflections across the ivory keys. Elellanena placed the newly found prelude on top the music rack, careful not to disturb the final page of the Nocturne already resting there. She sat, fingers poised above the keys, and began softly, letting the notes breathe. The prelude flowed gently, the melody tender and deliberate, each note a thread weaving through the quiet of the hall. As she played, Elellanena became aware of the mirror behind her, the reflection shimmering faintly, though this time she saw only herself, calm and present, a part of the music, a part of the hall. The final note lingered, a delicate resonance that filled the room and settled softly into the corners. Elellanena leaned back, taking a deep breath, feeling a wave of peace wash over her. The hall seemed to sigh with approval, its walls vibrating gently with memory and warmth. Outside, the snow continued to fall silently, covering the grounds in an endless soft white blanket. Inside, Elellanena felt a quiet certainty that she was exactly where she needed to be, that the house, the music, and her memories were entwined in a gentle embrace, guiding her toward the heart of the last Victorian Christmas. Elellanena rose from the piano and carried the candle carefully down the east wing corridor, the soft glow flickering against the dark wood panels and the portraits of ancestors staring quietly from their frames. The hall felt alive around her, a gentle heartbeat beneath her feet guiding each step. The snow outside pressed softly against the tall windows, muffling the world in white silence, while inside the air smelled faintly of wax, pine, and aged paper. She paused at a small alcove, where a narrow staircase led upward to a turret room she had never explored. The steps were worn smooth by generations of footsteps, the wood warm under her gloved hand. Curiosity stirred within her, urging her to climb. The melody from the prelude still lingered softly in her mind, a gentle current pulling her forward. At the top of the staircase, the turret room revealed itself, round with a single tall window overlooking the snow-draped courtyard. Candlelight from the corridor spilled in, illuminating a small writing desk, a few scattered books, and an armchair tucked into the corner. The scent of pine and old paper mingled in the air, and a faint shimmer of frost clung to the window pane. On the desk lay another small note, folded neatly, its edges yellowed with age. Elellanena picked it up and read the familiar script. The hall has its secrets and its gifts. Light the candle and listen for what it whispers. She glanced around. A single brass candle holder rested on the desk, its wick blackened but intact. Carefully, she struck a match and lit it. The flame wavered for a moment, then steadied, casting a warm glow over the turret room. The shadows softened, curling gently along the walls. As the candle burned, Elellanena noticed a faint hum, a vibration in the air that seemed almost musical. She leaned closer, realizing that the sound was coming from the walls themselves. The ancient stones held the memory of the hall, and in the quiet they began to speak. Soft creaks, low sighs, and a whisper of melody that intertwined with the prelude she had played earlier. Elellanena closed her eyes and listened. Each note, each sigh, each tiny movement of the house felt like a gentle conversation, a story being told in rhythms and echoes, inviting her to understand, to remember, to become part of the hall's living memory. When she opened her eyes, the turret room was calm, the candlelight steady, the snow drifting endlessly outside. Elellanena felt a serene warmth fill her chest, a sense of connection to the hall that went beyond walls and floors, beyond keys and music sheets. She was home. And in that quiet, the hall seemed to whisper one final thought before the night deepened fully. Rest now, Elellanena. Tomorrow the Christmas begins in earnest. Elellanena awoke to a soft silver light filtering through the frost-patterned windows of her bedroom. The snow outside lay thick and undisturbed, sparkling like countless tiny diamonds in the pale morning sun. The hall was hushed yet alive in its own gentle way, the subtle creak of timbers settling, the faint hum of the wind through the chimneys, and the soft whisper of snowflakes brushing against the tall windows. She rose slowly, stretching and letting the warmth of the quilt linger along her shoulders. The candle from the previous night had burned down to a small stub, its golden glow replaced by the soft clarity of morning. Elellanena glanced at the music box and the final sheets of the Nocturne resting beside her. The melody seemed to linger in the room, a quiet hum that resonated in her chest like a heartbeat. After a moment, she dressed warmly, pulling her cloak and gloves close against the winter chill. She descended the staircase carefully, each step cushioned by the thick rug, the portraits on the walls gazing silently at her progress. The hall felt different in the daylight, less mysterious, yet every bit as alive. The shadows were softer, the air lighter, the sense of memory more vivid than ever. In the dining room, a simple breakfast awaited. Fresh bread, butter, fruit preserves, and steaming tea. Mrs. Pembroke moved quietly between the hearth and table, humming softly, the gentle sound mingling with the faint crackle of the fire. "Good morning, Miss Whitby," she said, placing a cup of tea before Elellanena. "The hall has been restless this night, I think. It seems pleased you've begun the music." Elellanena smiled, warmth rising in her chest. "It feels as though it's been waiting for me." "Aye," Mrs. Pembroke said, pouring herself a cup. "And perhaps not only the music. There are things in this house that stir in winter, especially at Christmas, memories, laughter, old melodies, and sometimes secrets that have waited long enough." Elellanena sipped her tea, letting the gentle warmth fill her, and listened as the hall exhaled around her. Outside, the snow glistened, the courtyard pristine and bright. The world beyond Ashborne Hall seemed frozen and still, yet inside the house thrummed with life, the echo of past Christmases, the memory of her mother's lullabies, the whisper of music waiting to be completed. Her eyes drifted to the east wing windows. The piano awaited, patient and steady, ready to carry the melody forward. Elellanena felt a calm certainty settle within her. Today the hall would reveal more, guiding her through its stories, its warmth, and its final Victorian Christmas. With the morning light spilling softly around her, she rose from the table, ready to follow the hall once more. After breakfast, Elellanena wrapped her cloak tightly around her shoulders and stepped into the snow-covered courtyard. The air was crisp and clean, carrying the scent of pine and frost. Every surface gleamed white under the pale winter sun, the snow muffling the world into gentle silence. Her boots sank softly into the drifts, leaving a trail of footprints that curved toward the far side of the hall. The courtyard was vast, lined with towering yews and ancient oaks, their branches heavy with snow. Icicles hung from the edges of the roof, glittering like crystal daggers, and the windows of Ashborne Hall reflected the soft light in warm golden hues. Somewhere in the distance, a crow cawed, startlingly loud against the quiet, and Elellanena felt the hall's heartbeat in the still air. She walked slowly, taking in the familiar shapes and forms, yet everything seemed more alive in winter's hush. The old fountain in the center of the courtyard was frozen solid, its water encased in ice, but the intricate carvings of stone seemed to whisper stories from decades past. She traced her gloved fingers along the edge of the basin, feeling the cold stone beneath the snow. A soft crunch behind her made Elellanena turn. A small rabbit, snow-dusted and cautious, darted from a bush and disappeared under a low hedge. The sight made her smile, a tiny reminder that even in quiet, heavy snow, life persisted in secret corners. She remembered her mother's words from long ago, from her earliest Christmases. The magic of winter lay not only in gifts and lights, but in the quiet moments, the small hidden beauties of the world. Elellanena inhaled deeply, letting the cold air fill her lungs and carry the memory into her heart. At the far end of the courtyard, she noticed a faint trail of footprints leading toward the east wing. They were small, delicate, too perfect to be human alone, and yet they seemed to beckon her forward. Curiosity urged her onward, and she followed them, each step silent and deliberate, her cloak brushing the snow. As she approached the music room door, she paused to look up at the towering windows of Ashborne Hall. The sunlight glinted off the icicles, sending tiny rays of light dancing across the courtyard. Elellanena felt a deep, unspoken promise in the air. The hall was alive with history, with memory, and with the music that had waited so long to be heard. The footprints stopped at the piano room door, but Elellanena knew their message. The melody was calling her, inviting her to complete what had begun. She opened the door slowly, letting the snow-fresh air drift in, and stepped inside, the quiet warmth of the piano room embracing her once more. The hall, outside and in, seemed to lean closer, eager to witness the unfolding of the last Victorian Christmas. Elellanena stood before the piano, the morning light spilling through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the polished wood. The snow outside glimmered like countless diamonds, each flake reflecting the pale sunlight that filled the music room with a soft, serene glow. She placed the prelude and the final Nocturne page carefully on the music rack, letting her fingers hover above the keys for a moment, savoring the stillness. The hall seemed to exhale around her, a soft, almost imperceptible vibration that threaded through the floorboards and walls. Elellanena drew a slow breath, letting the quiet of the morning settle into her chest. Each note she played would now carry not only memory, but presence. The gentle warmth of past Christmases, the echoes of her mother's lullabies, and the hall itself, alive and listening. Her fingers pressed down gently on the ivory keys. The first note sounded clear and soft, resonating in the room like a single drop of water in a still pond. The vibration spread through the air, mingling with the faint scent of beeswax and pine, carrying a subtle warmth that brushed against her fingertips. The melody unfolded slowly, deliberately, each note a gentle wave weaving through the stillness. Elellanena allowed herself to close her eyes, letting the music guide her. She imagined the hall as it had once been, the laughter of servants echoing through the corridors, the crackle of firelight on winter nights, the gentle murmur of her family gathered together, sharing warmth and stories. Halfway through, she paused, letting a single chord linger. The resonance filled the room, and Elellanena felt the presence of the hall in every corner, The painted eyes of the portraits, the dust motes dancing in the light, the soft breath of the wind through the chimneys. She realized that this music was more than notes. It was memory made audible, a bridge between the past and the present. Then, as if in answer, a single key farther down the piano pressed itself softly, producing a note that harmonized perfectly with the one she had struck. Elellanena smiled, heart swelling. The hall was joining her, participating in the melody, guiding her hands and heart. Outside, the snow continued to fall silently, a soft blanket over the world, but inside the hall was warm and alive. The music rose, gentle and luminous, filling the room with peace, hope, and quiet joy. Elellenane's fingers moved deliberately, tenderly, finishing the prelude, then carrying seamlessly into the nocturne. Each note was a step closer to completing the melody, a quiet celebration of memory, music, and home. For the first time, Elellanena felt the true magic of Ashborne Hall, the intertwining of past and present, of warmth and memory, of music and snow. She was exactly where she needed to be. After completing the first movement of the melody, Elellanena leaned back from the piano, her fingers tingling with the residual warmth of the notes. The music lingered in the room, vibrating gently through the floorboards and walls, and she felt the hall itself exhale in contentment. Outside, the snow continued its endless fall, muffling the world in soft silence, while inside, the air smelled faintly of pine, beeswax, and the faint remnants of yesterday's fire. Her gaze drifted toward the hearth, where embers from the morning fire glowed faintly, though the logs had long since burned down. There was a subtle warmth radiating from the stone, a gentle pull that seemed almost alive. Elellanena approached, curiosity and intuition guiding her steps. The hearth had always been a place of gathering, of safety and warmth, but today it seemed to hold a secret, waiting patiently to be discovered. She knelt before the hearth, brushing away a thin layer of ash that had settled overnight. The stones beneath were smooth, worn by countless winters, yet one corner of the hearth seemed to differ. A small stone jutted slightly, almost imperceptibly, as if placed to be pressed or lifted. Elellenane's fingers traced its edges, and with a gentle push, the stone shifted with a soft click. A narrow compartment opened within the hearth. Inside lay a small bundle tied with crimson ribbon. Elellanena lifted it carefully. Unwrapping the ribbon revealed a delicate leather-bound journal, its pages faintly yellowed with age. The cover bore no name, only a small etched emblem of holly and ivy. Opening the journal, she found pages filled with her mother's handwriting, letters, notes, and short poems, many addressed to Elellanena herself. Some were tender musings on music and memory, others gentle reminders of love, warmth, and the quiet joys of winter. At the very back of the journal lay a small folded sheet of music, the missing measures of the Nocturne, the final notes that her mother had never been able to play. Elellena's breath caught. The hall had waited for her to find this, to complete the melody that had been paused for decades. She pressed the pages to her chest, feeling a warmth radiate through her as if the very heart of the hall was offering its embrace. The firelight seemed to grow brighter, casting golden reflections across the room, and for a moment Elellanena thought she heard a faint hum, a soft echo of a lullaby threading through the walls and embers. With the final sheet of music in her hands, Elellanena rose, a deep sense of calm settling over her. The hall had entrusted her with its secret, its memory, and its melody. Now it was her turn to bring the music to life, to fill every corner with warmth, sound, and the gentle spirit of the last Victorian Christmas. Elellanena returned to the piano with the leather-bound journal cradled carefully in her arms. The final sheet of the Nocturne rested on top the music stand, its edges slightly curling as though eager to be played. She set the journal aside, keeping the treasured pages close for later reflection, and let her fingers hover above the keys. The hall was quiet, yet alive with anticipation. The walls seemed to lean in, the shadows softening as if to make room for the music. The snow outside glimmered under the soft winter sunlight, but inside the piano room held a golden warmth infused with the lingering scent of pine, beeswax, and the memory of countless winters past. Elellanena took a deep, steadying breath. Slowly, deliberately, she pressed the first key. The note rang out, clear and gentle, carrying the weight of memory and the promise of completion. She continued, each hand following the path laid by her mother's hand years before. The melody flowed with deliberate calm, a ribbon of sound that wound through the room, around the walls and into the very heart of the hall. Halfway through, she paused to glance at the journal. Her mother's notes whispered encouragement, delicate observations about the music, reminders to feel each note as one would a memory. Elellanenna's fingers returned to the keys with renewed purpose, tracing the final measures of the Nocturne. Each note was a conversation with the past, a dialogue with the hall itself. As she played the last chord, a hush fell across the room. The sound lingered, vibrating softly against the polished wood, the walls, and the floor, filling every corner with quiet triumph and gentle joy. For a moment, Elellanena felt time pause. The snow outside had ceased its fall. The air was still. The house seemed to exhale, its presence embracing her in warmth and memory. Then, softly, a new sound entered the room, a faint high note from the music box on top the piano. It chimed in perfect harmony with the final chord, as if affirming her completion. Elellanena smiled, tears welling in her eyes, a tender ache of gratitude and remembrance filling her chest. The hall was alive in a new way. Its memory, its warmth, its music, all had been restored, not just by her hands, but by her heart. She rose slowly, letting her fingers linger on the final keys, feeling the echo of the melody settle around her. Outside, the snow glistened under the morning sun, pure and serene. Inside, Elellanena felt a deep, abiding peace. Ashborne Hall had shared its secret, its song, and its heart, and she had been ready to listen, to play, and to remember. For the first time since her arrival, Elellanena felt fully at home, the music of the last Victorian Christmas resonating within her soul. Elellanena rested her hands on the piano, the final notes of the Nocturne still echoing softly through the music room. The warmth from the fire and the golden morning light seemed to hum in tandem with the melody, a quiet, comforting resonance that filled the space. She closed her eyes briefly, savoring the calm, when a soft knock reached her ears. The sound was gentle, deliberate, almost hesitant. Elellanena opened her eyes and glanced toward the door. Outside the music room, the corridor lay bright with morning light, yet the knock repeated, soft, polite, insistent. Curiosity nudged her forward. She stepped lightly across the polished floor, candle in hand, and opened the door. A figure stood just beyond the threshold, a young man, perhaps no older than she remembered from childhood visits to the hall, dressed in dark wool and a heavy scarf dusted with snow. His expression was warm but cautious, as if he had not expected to find her awake so early. "Miss Whitby," he asked gently, "I hope I am not intruding. My name is Thomas Gray. I heard music." Elellanena felt a subtle shiver of recognition. Though she had never met him before, there was something familiar in his presence, a connection to the hall that went beyond introductions. I was playing, she said softly, holding the music box and sheets close. The Nocturne's music. Thomas smiled, stepping into the warm light of the room. I thought I recognized it. The hall doesn't often let anyone hear that melody. You've completed it. She nodded. I think yes. It felt like it was waiting for me. He glanced around the room, his eyes lingering on the piano, the candlelight, the soft glow of morning. The hall has a way of sensing those who belong. Only those who can listen, truly listen, hear its memory. Elellena's heart swelled at his words, the quiet warmth of companionship threading through the room. She gestured to the music box and journal. I found these hidden pages in the final sheet. The hall guided me here. Thomas nodded, his gaze gentle. And the hall trusts you, and perhaps it trusts me to bear witness. Sometimes music needs more than one heart to carry its meaning forward. Outside, the snow shimmered in the morning sun, the world hushed and serene. Inside the music room, the hall seemed to lean closer, its presence welcoming and alive. Elellanena felt a calm certainty. The hall had opened not just its music, but a space for connection, for shared memory, for warmth that extended beyond walls and keys. Together they looked at the piano, the candlelight flickering across the polished wood, and in that quiet golden morning, the hall seemed to whisper again. The music continues, and so do those who listen. Elellanena and Thomas stood side by side before the piano, the morning light spilling through the tall windows and casting gentle patterns across the polished wood. The hall seemed to hum softly, a quiet presence that wrapped around them like a protective cloak. I've never heard the hall so alive, Thomas murmured. It's as if every corner, every shadow, every breath of wind is listening. Elellanena nodded, her fingers brushing lightly across the ivory keys. It's more than the music, she said. It's the memory, the warmth, the hall itself guiding the notes. Thomas lifted his hand, hesitating for a moment, then pressed a single key. The note chimed clear and true, harmonizing perfectly with the lingering sound of the Nocturne. Elellanena smiled, the delicate resonance filling the room like sunlight through frost. Together they began to play. Elellanena leading with the prelude and the Nocturne, Thomas following in gentle harmony. The notes flowed slowly, deliberately, a ribbon of sound that intertwined with the golden morning light, with the scent of pine and beeswax, with the quiet pulse of the hall itself. As they played, Elellanena felt the presence of her mother, subtle and comforting, like a soft breeze across the nape of her neck. She imagined her mother's fingers hovering above the keys, guiding them, approving the unfolding of the melody. Thomas's notes carried warmth, encouragement, and a sense of shared purpose that threaded seamlessly with Elellena's. Outside, the snow shimmered in silence, untouched and pristine. Yet inside, the music wrapped the room in gentle energy, filling every corner, every shadow, every worn stone of Ashborne Hall with life. Each note was deliberate, tender, and resonant, like a conversation between hearts separated by time, but reunited through sound. When the final chord faded, a hush settled over the room. The music lingered in the air, vibrating softly through the floors, walls, and ceilings, as if the hall itself had exhaled in relief and joy. Elellanena leaned back, her fingers still resting on the keys, and smiled at Thomas. The hall trusts us now, she whispered, not just to play its music, but to carry its memory forward. Thomas nodded, and to share it gently with those who enter its rooms. This is more than a song. It's a gift, a story, a home. The candlelight flickered softly on the polished wood, the shadows leaning in, the snow outside untouched. In that quiet golden morning, Elellanena realized that the hall had given her more than music. It had given her companionship, trust, and the unspoken promise that even in silence, warmth and memory could live. Together they lingered, savoring the gentle resonance, the quiet heartbeat of Ashborne Hall, and the tender joy of the last Victorian Christmas. After the shared morning at the piano, Elellanena felt a quiet stirring of curiosity. There were corners of Ashborne Hall she had yet to explore, rooms untouched by time or memory, waiting patiently for her presence. The attic, she realized, had always been a place of whispered tales, mysterious trunks, dust-laden books, and forgotten treasures hidden beneath heavy quilts and cobwebbed beams. She made her way up the narrow staircase, each step muffled by the thick carpet, the air growing cooler with every ascent. Thomas followed silently, his expression gentle and encouraging, the shared bond of music and memory linking them. At the top of the stairs, the heavy attic door loomed, its brass knob tarnished with age. Elellanena turned it slowly, and the hinges groaned softly in welcome. Inside, the attic was bathed in a soft, diffused light filtering through small frosted windows. Dust motes floated lazily in the beams, and the scent of old cedar, worn fabric, and winter air filled her lungs. Elellanena moved carefully among stacks of trunks, boxes, and scattered sheets of paper. Each item seemed alive with memory, waiting to be touched and remembered. Her eyes fell upon a small, intricately carved chest tucked beneath a pile of quilts. Its surface was worn smooth, but delicate etchings of holly and ivy still gleamed faintly in the sunlight. She knelt and lifted the lid with care. Inside were letters bound with ribbons, old photographs in faded sepia tones, and small trinkets, a porcelain figurine, a brass locket, a silver thimble, reminders of lives long past within these walls. Among the items, Elellanena found a thin dust-covered folder labeled simply, "Christmases Past." Inside were sheets of music, some complete, some partial, and a few sketches of festive decorations, wreaths, and candle arrangements. One particular sketch caught her eye, a drawing of the grand Christmas tree adorned with ribbons and bells, and a small note written in her mother's delicate hand. For Elellanena, may you see each Christmas as it was meant to be, full of wonder, warmth, and love. Her heart warmed at the sight, and she traced the delicate ink with her fingertips, feeling the quiet presence of her mother surrounding her. Thomas leaned closer, observing the treasure with gentle reverence. "The hall keeps its stories here," he murmured, "not just music, but memories, celebrations, and love. It has waited all these years for someone to see them, to honor them." Elellanena nodded, placing the sketches and sheets carefully back in the chest. She realized that the attic was more than storage. It was a sanctuary of remembrance, a quiet archive of the hall's living heart. Each discovery whispered not just history, but hope, warmth, and the promise that the last Victorian Christmas was unfolding with every careful step she took. Outside, the snow continued to drift, muffling the world in soft white quiet. Inside the attic, the golden light and faint scents of cedar and paper created a haven of memory and peace, a gentle cradle for Elellenena's heart as she prepared to uncover more of Ashborne Hall's secrets. After the attic, Elellanena and Thomas descended to the main hall, their footsteps echoing softly against the polished wood floors. The hall felt more alive than ever. Each corridor and chamber anticipating the season, the snow outside glinting like diamonds under the winter sun. Elellenena's thoughts lingered on the sketches she had found, particularly the one depicting the grand Christmas tree, and an idea began to bloom in her mind. The main hall was vast with high ceilings, high windows, and polished oak floors that reflected the morning light. In the center, a space waited, empty yet expectant, as if it knew it would soon be filled with color, warmth, and celebration. Elellanena retrieved one of the small trunks from the attic, opening it to reveal strings of hand-cut paper chains, delicate ornaments, and ribbons of deep crimson and gold. Thomas knelt beside her, lifting a bundle of tiny candles. "Shall we begin?" he asked, his eyes soft with anticipation. Elellanena nodded, and together they set to work. Each ornament was carefully hung on the tree, each ribbon gently draped and adjusted. The candles were placed in brass holders along the branches, and the soft fragrance of pine and beeswax filled the air. Outside, the snow continued to fall, muffling the world beyond the hall, leaving the interior warm, alive, and serene. As they worked, Elellanena felt the hall's presence more keenly than ever. The shadows seemed to lean in, curious and approving. The portraits lining the hall watched quietly, as though remembering past Christmases, nodding in silent encouragement. Every placement of an ornament, every adjustment of a ribbon felt deliberate, a continuation of a long tradition carried forward by her hands. By the time they stepped back, the tree stood resplendent, a beacon of warmth, memory, and gentle light. The soft flicker of candlelight reflected across the polished floor, casting patterns of gold and crimson on the walls. Elellanenna's heart swelled with quiet joy. For the first time in decades, the hall's Christmas felt fully alive, as though all the years of waiting had been for this single moment. Thomas placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "The hall is pleased," he said, "and so am I. It feels complete." Elellanena smiled, brushing a gloved hand along a branch. "Not yet," she whispered softly, "but it feels like we're close. There's more to uncover, more music, more memory, more of the last Victorian Christmas waiting for us." The hall seemed to hum in agreement, the snow outside glimmering in silent celebration. Inside, the golden warmth, the scent of pine and wax, and the gentle light of the candles filled every corner, wrapping Elellanena and Thomas in a cocoon of quiet peace and anticipation. The Christmas tree, standing proud and radiant, marked not just a decoration, but the heartbeat of Ashborne Hall, its memory, its music, and its last Victorian Christmas brought gently to life. After arranging the grand Christmas tree, Elellanena felt the need to breathe in the crisp winter air. She and Thomas stepped out into the courtyard, the snow crunching softly beneath their boots. The world was quiet, muffled by fresh layers of snow, each flake glittering like tiny stars under the pale winter sun. The courtyard was vast and serene. Snow-dusted yews and oaks stood like silent sentinels, their branches heavy with frost. Elellanena inhaled deeply, the cold air filling her lungs with a bracing clarity, mingled with the subtle scent of pine and smoke from distant chimneys. Her cheeks tingled, and the gentle wind carried a feeling of exhilaration, as if the hall itself had nudged her outside to witness its quiet beauty. Thomas walked beside her, his gaze drifting across the courtyard. "It's almost as if time has paused here," he said softly. "The snow, the hall, it all feels suspended, waiting for something." Elellanena nodded, tracing the delicate frost patterns on the edge of a marble fountain. "It feels like the hall is alive," she said, smiling. "Every corner holds a memory, every shadow, every whisper, it all speaks." They wandered slowly, letting their steps mark the pristine snow. Each footprint became a part of the hall's story, a temporary trace of presence that would soon be embraced by the falling snow. Occasionally, a faint sound reached them, the soft tap of an icicle against the stone, the whisper of wind through the branches, the distant echo of the hall itself settling into the morning. Near the east wing, Elellanena spotted a small wooden bench, partially buried under snow. She brushed it free with her gloved hand, and they paused to rest. From this vantage point, they could see the entire courtyard, the hall rising majestically behind them, the snow sparkling endlessly like powdered lace. "I imagined Christmases here long ago," Elellanena murmured, her voice soft. "Children laughing, fires crackling, carols drifting through these halls, and the music of families celebrating together." Thomas smiled, a faint warmth in his eyes. "And now you've returned, Elellanena. You've brought the music back, completed the melody, and revived the memory. The hall has waited for you, just as it did for your mother." Elellanena leaned back on the bench, letting the soft cold seep into her fingers and face. She closed her eyes, savoring the serene stillness. The snow continued to fall gently, blanketing the world in quiet magic, and the hall seemed to pulse softly, embracing them both in memory, music, and the gentle spirit of the last Victorian Christmas. They sat in companionable silence, the courtyard and the hall their private sanctuary, knowing that inside warmth, music, and wonder awaited them once more. After their snowy walk, Elellanena and Thomas returned to the warmth of Ashborne Hall. The glow from the fireplace in the sitting room welcomed them, soft and golden, while the scent of pine from the Christmas tree mingled with faint traces of melted snow from their coats. Elellanena placed her gloves and cloak neatly on a chair and turned toward the small writing desk near the window. She opened the leather-bound journal she had discovered in the attic, gently turning the fragile pages. The handwriting was elegant, curling with care, and each word seemed to carry the voice of her mother speaking across decades. Among the entries, Elellanena found letters addressed to her, hidden long ago as reminders of love, encouragement, and hope. She smiled softly, the memory of her childhood and her mother's warmth enveloping her. Thomas watched quietly, giving her the space to absorb the letters. "The hall's memories aren't just music," he said. "They're stories, moments, whispers of people who lived and loved here, and you've brought them back to life." Elellanena unfolded one particularly delicate letter. Her mother's words spoke of snow-laden mornings, candlelit evenings, and the joy of family gatherings. Some described favorite Christmas treats, the scent of warm pudding, spiced wine, roasted chestnuts, and the way laughter drifted through the hallways. Elellanena could almost taste the sweetness, almost hear the giggles of children playing in the corridors. "I never realized how much the hall held," she whispered, turning another page. "It's not just walls and furniture. It's memory, emotion, music. It's alive." Thomas nodded, picking up a small envelope tucked into the journal. Inside was a single photograph, sepia-toned, of a young woman in a long, flowing dress arranging the Christmas tree in the very hall where they had worked. Elellanena recognized her immediately. It was her mother. She traced the edges of the photograph with her fingers, feeling the connection across time, the unbroken thread of family and memory. "The hall waits for those who listen," Thomas said softly. "And now it's listening with you." Elellanena placed the letters and photograph carefully back into the journal. The fire crackled softly, the tree's candlelight flickered, and the hall seemed to hum with quiet contentment. She realized that the last Victorian Christmas was not just about music or decorations. It was about remembering, sharing, and honoring the love and life that had passed through these walls. Outside, the snow continued to fall silently, glimmering under the pale winter light. while inside, Elellanena felt the warmth of family, memory, and the hall's enduring heartbeat. She knew that the unfolding story of this Christmas had many more chapters, and she was ready to follow each one. Elellanena moved from the sitting room toward the kitchen, where the comforting scent of winter spices welcomed her. The hall's kitchen had always been a place of warmth and activity, but today it felt especially alive, infused with the gentle anticipation of Christmas. Cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, and a faint trace of orange zest mingled in the air, wrapping around her like a soft, invisible quilt. Mrs. Pembroke stood at the hearth, stirring a large copper pot of mulled wine that filled the room with rich aromatic warmth. Steam curled lazily upward, carrying the scent of spiced fruits and honey. She turned and smiled warmly at Elellanena. "Good morning, Miss Whitby. You've returned to the hall in time for preparations. Would you like to help with some treats?" Brow she. Elellanena nodded, her fingers tingling at the prospect. She joined Mrs. Pembroke at the counter, laying out ingredients for fruitcakes, gingerbread cookies, and small spiced biscuits. The kitchen was bright and cozy, lit by the soft morning sunlight and the warm glow of the hearth. The snow outside continued its steady fall, the courtyard a pristine white expanse, but inside the air was fragrant, comforting, and alive with gentle activity. As they worked, Elellanena chopped nuts and candied fruits, each motion deliberate and soothing. The rhythmic sound of slicing, mixing, and stirring blended with the crackling of the fire and the soft hum of Mrs. Pembroke's singing. Thomas watched from the doorway, his presence quiet but encouraging, the warmth of companionship threading through the room. Elellanena inhaled deeply, savoring the scents and sensations, the nutmeg's sweetness, the cinnamon's warmth, the honey's richness. They were not just ingredients, but memories embodied in smell and taste. She felt the hall's essence in every corner, the music, the laughter, the quiet rhythm of life, and the anticipation of the approaching Christmas celebrations. After a while, the first batch of cookies slid from the oven, golden and fragrant. Elellanena tasted one, the spiced sweetness melting on her tongue, carrying a gentle reminder of Christmases past. The hall seemed to respond, shadows softening, the fire crackling more warmly, and the snow outside glittering with renewed brilliance. "This," Elellanena whispered to Thomas, "is the heart of Ashborne Hall. Warmth, memory, and small joys all gathered together." Thomas nodded, smiling. "And now we get to share it, not just with ourselves, but with the hall and with the Christmas it remembers." The scents lingered, rich and comforting, and Elellanena felt a deep sense of peace settle within her. The last Victorian Christmas was unfolding, not only through music and memory, but through the quiet, tender pleasures that made Ashborne Hall a home. After their time in the kitchen, Elellanena felt an irresistible pull to explore a part of Ashborne Hall she had never fully understood. The hidden corridors whispered of long-forgotten secrets and forgotten footsteps. She glanced at Thomas, whose eyes mirrored the same curiosity, and together they ventured toward the west wing, where a faint draft suggested a hidden doorway somewhere along the tall wood-paneled walls. The corridor was quiet, dust motes drifting in the morning light, the floorboards creaking softly beneath their careful steps. Elellanena ran her gloved fingers along the wall, tracing the smooth, polished wood until she felt a subtle irregularity, a narrow panel that shifted slightly beneath her touch. With a gentle push, the panel swung inward, revealing a hidden passage dimly lit by thin shafts of sunlight from tiny frosted windows above. They stepped inside. The air was cooler here, tinged with the scent of aged stone and faint traces of cedar from long-forgotten chests. The narrow corridor twisted and turned, the walls lined with shelves of dusty tomes, small boxes, and trinkets left behind by generations who had wandered these halls. Each item seemed to hold a story, a whisper of the hall's memory, waiting for discovery. Halfway along the passage, Elellanena noticed a faint glow emanating from a small alcove. Inside, a carved wooden cabinet rested against the wall, its door slightly ajar. She knelt and peered inside, discovering a collection of delicate hand-painted ornaments, tiny glass spheres, intricate figurines, and small porcelain bells. Each piece seemed untouched by time, their colors still vibrant, the craftsmanship meticulous. Thomas picked up a small bell, its surface cool to the touch. He shook it gently, and a soft crystalline chime echoed through the passage, mingling with the faint rustle of the hall's whispers. Elellanena smiled, realizing that the hidden passage was not merely a corridor. It was a repository of memory, a place where the hall's joy, wonder, and quiet magic had been preserved, waiting for her to find it. Carefully, they carried some of the ornaments back to the main hall, placing them on the branches of the grand Christmas tree. The golden candlelight reflected off the glass, sending tiny rainbows dancing across the walls, and the hall seemed to sigh in quiet approval. The snow continued its gentle fall outside, glittering in the pale light. While inside, Elellanena felt a deep sense of connection to her family, to the hall, and to the memories carefully preserved within its hidden corners. Each discovery reminded her that the last Victorian Christmas was not just a celebration, but a gentle weaving together of past, present, and the quiet magic that lingered in every stone, every melody, and every heartbeat of Ashborne Hall. By mid-afternoon, the snow outside had thickened, drifting in soft, continuous waves that cloaked the courtyard and gardens in untouched white. Elellanena stood at a tall window in the main hall, watching the flakes spiral slowly, each one unique and delicate, settling quietly on the tree branches, the stone balustrades, and the frosted paths below. The world outside seemed suspended in a serene stillness, a soft silence that wrapped the hall like a gentle blanket. Thomas joined her, bringing a steaming cup of tea. "It's as if the hall itself wanted the snow to fall this way," he murmured, handing her the cup, soft, slow, perfect for reflection. Elellanena inhaled the warm scent of the tea and exhaled, feeling the calm seep into her shoulders. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "The hall feels quieter, more intimate, with the snow pressing in, as if it's sharing its secrets more willingly." They stood together in silence, watching the flakes drift down. Occasionally, a small bird would flit across the courtyard, leaving delicate tracks behind, only to vanish again into the endless white. The soft hiss of wind against the windows was a whisper, the quiet sound blending with the distant hum of the hall's timbers settling in the winter cold. Elellanena traced the outline of the snow-laden branches with her eyes, imagining the children and families of past Christmases playing in this very courtyard, their laughter muffled by the same soft snow, their joy echoing faintly in the walls and corridors. The memory felt almost tangible, a layer of warmth beneath the icy calm. "I've never felt anything like this," Thomas said softly, his gaze following hers. "The hall, it's alive with memory and presence, and the snow seems to heighten that." Elellanena nodded, letting her fingers brush against the frosted window pane. The cold was sharp, but not unpleasant. It reminded her that life was vibrant, even in stillness, even in quiet moments. She could almost hear the soft echo of music carried through the air, a continuation of the melody she had played earlier, harmonizing with the hush of the winter storm. They remained by the window for a long while, sipping their tea, letting the hall and the snowfall settle around them. Every flake seemed to carry a story, a gentle memory, a note in the ongoing symphony of the last Victorian Christmas. The world outside was frozen and quiet, yet inside, warmth, music, and memory thrived, embracing Elellanena and Thomas in a cocoon of serene wonder. As the snowstorm continued outside, Elellanena and Thomas returned to the sitting room where the fireplace glowed warmly, sending golden light dancing across the walls and ceiling. The scent of pine from the Christmas tree and the lingering aroma of winter spices filled the room, mingling with the faint smoke from the fire. The hall seemed to hum softly, a gentle vibration that wrapped around them like a comforting embrace. Elellanena gathered the letters, sketches, and photographs from the attic, laying them carefully on the small oak table beside the fire. "I think the hall wants us to remember more than just music," she said softly. "It wants us to feel the lives that passed through these rooms, the stories, the laughter, the quiet moments of reflection." Thomas nodded, settling into a nearby armchair, the firelight flickering across his face. "Then let us listen," he said, his voice calm, steady, "and let the hall guide us through its memories." Elellanena opened one of the letters, reading aloud the gentle curling handwriting of her mother. Tales of winter, walks in the courtyard, children playing near the fountain, evenings spent singing by the fire. Each story was imbued with warmth, humor, and love. The words painted vivid pictures in Elellanenna's mind. The soft crunch of snow under boots, the tang of spiced wine, the delicate sparkle of candlelight on polished wood. As she read, Thomas added his own observations, recalling the way the hall seemed to preserve moments in its walls, in the timbers, in the very air they breathed. The two of them spoke softly, weaving the letters and sketches into a shared narrative that embraced both past and present. The fire crackled, sending tiny sparks into the hearth, and Elellanena felt the gentle weight of history settle around them. Every corner of the room seemed to lean in, listening, remembering, participating in the quiet communion. The snow outside pressed against the windows, a soft white curtain muffling the world beyond the hall. After hours of reading, sharing, and reflecting, Elellanena set down the letters. She glanced at Thomas and smiled. The hall doesn't just tell stories. It invites you to live them, to feel them, to become part of them. Thomas nodded, eyes warm. And in doing so, it allows us to continue its memory, to keep its spirit alive. The room was serene, golden with firelight, and Elellanena felt a deep, abiding peace. The last Victorian Christmas was unfolding not just through music or decorations, but through the gentle, lingering stories of life, love, and memory preserved within the walls of Ashborne Hall. As the afternoon sun dipped lower, casting a soft golden haze through the tall windows, Elellanena and Thomas moved to the small sitting alcove beside the fireplace. A silver tray had been prepared with delicate china cups, steaming tea, and small spiced biscuits. The hall exhaled a calm warmth, the fire crackling gently, mingling with the faint scent of pine and winter spices lingering from the kitchen. Elellanena poured the tea carefully, the steam curling in lazy, fragrant spirals. She handed a cup to Thomas, who accepted it with a quiet smile, and they settled into the soft armchairs. Outside, the snow continued to fall softly, each flake landing silently, adding another layer of pristine white to the courtyard. "It's strange," Elellanena said, gazing into her cup. "Being here feels like stepping into a memory. Yet, it's all alive. The hall isn't just a building, it's a presence. Every sound, every shadow, It seems to have its own heartbeat. Thomas nodded, tracing the rim of his cup with a gloved finger. It's the culmination of years of care, love, and life. Every family that lived here, every celebration, every quiet night, it's all woven into the walls, and you've brought your own thread into that tapestry. Elellanena took a sip of tea, letting the warmth settle into her chest. She looked around at the flickering firelight reflecting off the polished wood, the soft glow of the Christmas tree, and the golden light spilling through the windows. Every detail seemed heightened, as if the hall itself wanted her to notice, to savor each element of its memory. She reached for the journal once more, flipping through the letters and sketches. Some described the smell of roasted chestnuts, others the crackle of fire in the hall, the sound of carolers' voices drifting in from nearby streets, and the faint echo of music floating through corridors. Each description was vivid, yet soothing, like a gentle lullaby of past Christmases. Thomas leaned back, closing his eyes briefly. "There's a calmness here," he said softly. "Even in the snow, even in the cold, the hall carries warmth, and it's patient, waiting for someone to notice, to cherish it." Elellanena smiled, feeling the gentle resonance of his words. She realized that this quiet afternoon tea, this simple act of reflection, was as much a part of the last Victorian Christmas as the music, the tree, or the snow outside. It was a moment of stillness, a pause to appreciate memory, presence, and the quiet magic that lingered in every corner of Ashborne Hall. Together, they sipped their tea in companionable silence, letting the hall's warmth and history envelop them, knowing that each gentle moment was part of the story yet to unfold. After their quiet tea, Elellanena felt a renewed curiosity about the hall's many secret corners. She remembered faint whispers she had heard in the evenings, soft echoes that seemed to drift from behind the walls of the west wing. Guided by instinct, she led Thomas down a narrow corridor lined with aged portraits whose painted eyes seemed to watch their careful progress. At the end of the hall, she paused before a heavy wooden door, its surface carved with intricate ivy patterns. A faint chill emanated from the frame, and Elellanena pressed her hand to it. "I think there's something behind this," she murmured. Thomas nodded, brushing the frost from the edges of the door before she turned the latch. The door creaked open, revealing a small hidden music room. The space was dimly lit, yet alive with quiet presence. Dust motes danced lazily in the shafts of pale light from a single frosted window. A harp stood in the corner, its strings faintly glimmering, and along the walls were shelves of sheet music, some brittle with age, others surprisingly pristine. The air smelled faintly of old paper, polished wood, and a lingering hint of lavender. Elellanena stepped inside, running her fingers along the keys of a small upright piano in the center. A faint hum seemed to rise from the wood itself, as if the hall recognized her touch. "The hall keeps its secrets well," Thomas whispered. "I think this room holds music that hasn't been played in decades, perhaps centuries." She opened one of the shelves and carefully lifted a bundle of music sheets tied with faded ribbon. The notations were delicate, detailed, and full of emotion. Some were lullabies, others festive carols, and a few seemed to be exercises or experiments in melody, fragments left by composers who had passed through Ashborne Hall. Elellanena traced her fingers over the staves, imagining the gentle echo of these songs floating through the corridors long ago. Thomas picked up a small music box, winding it carefully. A soft, crystalline melody rose, blending with the subtle echoes of the room. Elellanena smiled, recognizing a theme she had played before, the hall's memory patiently waiting for her to discover it, to honor it. They spent hours in the music room, exploring the sheets, testing the instruments, and listening as the hall whispered its stories. Each note, each fragment of song seemed to breathe life back into the space, filling it with warmth, memory, and the quiet joy of discovery. As evening began to fall, Elellanena closed the music sheets carefully and whispered to Thomas, "The hall gives its music to those who are willing to listen. I think it trusts us now, and I want to carry this trust forward." Outside, the snow shimmered in the fading light, and inside, the hidden music room glowed with quiet reverence, a sanctuary of sound, memory, and gentle magic, perfectly attuned to the last Victorian Christmas. As twilight settled over Ashborne Hall, Elellanena and Thomas returned to the grand hall, where the Christmas tree shimmered softly in the firelight. The snow outside had thickened, layering the courtyard in a serene, untouched white, while the interior glowed golden and warm. Shadows from the flickering flames danced across the polished floors, creating an intricate pattern that felt almost alive. Elellanena ran her gloved hand along the velvet arm of a nearby settee, taking in the familiar comfort of the room. The scents of pine, beeswax, and winter spices lingered, mingling with the faint aroma of melted snow from earlier walks outside. She felt the hall's presence in every corner, as though it were leaning in to observe the unfolding evening, quietly approving of the music, the decorations, and the rediscovery of its memories. Thomas moved to the piano, his fingers brushing lightly over the keys. "Do you want to play a piece together before night falls?" he asked, a soft smile on his face. Elellanena nodded, her heart warming at the thought. She joined him, lifting the Nocturne and placing the final sheet on the music stand. The soft glow of the Christmas tree reflected on the polished keys, golden light dancing with every movement. Their fingers touched the ivory lightly, deliberately, coaxing a gentle flowing melody that intertwined with the crackle of the fire. Each note resonated through the hall, soft yet clear, carrying the spirit of past Christmases, the warmth of family, and the quiet magic of Ashborne Hall itself. The music seemed to stretch beyond the walls, mingling with the hush of falling snow, the gentle hush of winter twilight, and the memories embedded in every timber of the hall. As the final notes faded, Elellanena leaned back, letting the warmth of the room settle into her shoulders. "It's incredible," she whispered. "Even after all this time, the hall's music, its memory, it's alive, and we're part of it now." Thomas nodded, glancing at the tree and the glowing candles. "This is the heartbeat of the last Victorian Christmas. The hall, the music, the snow. Everything has led to this moment, and we've preserved it together." Elellanena smiled, feeling the deep, comforting rhythm of the hall. Outside, the snow sparkled under the pale light of dusk, while inside, warmth, light, and gentle music enveloped them. For a long while, they simply sat, listening to the quiet heartbeat of the hall, letting it seep into their bones, and savoring the serene magic of a Christmas that bridged generations. As evening deepened and the carols faded, Elellanena and Thomas lingered near the grand fireplace, the soft warmth of the flames wrapping around them. The snow outside had thickened, swirling in delicate, glittering patterns against the darkened windows. The hall seemed to hold its breath, a quiet expectancy settling over every polished surface, every shadowed corner. A soft rap echoed from the front door, gentle yet deliberate. Elellanena exchanged a glance with Thomas, curiosity stirring. Carefully they crossed the hall and opened the door. Outside, a figure stood in the soft, snow-dusted light, a messenger from the nearby village wrapped in a thick cloak, his breath curling in the cold air. "Forgive the late hour," he said, voice muffled by the scarf around his face. "I've come with a small gift for the hall, something to honor the season." Elellanena took the parcel, feeling its weight and the promise contained within. It was a wooden box finely crafted with holly etched into its surface. Inside, they found small handcrafted figurines, a tiny sleigh, delicate snowmen, miniature trees, and angels carved from wood, their surfaces smooth and polished. Each piece radiated careful attention and warmth. Thomas set the box gently on the hall table, and Elellanena smiled. "The hall has always been part of the village," she said softly. "Its spirit touches everyone nearby. Even now, in the last Victorian Christmas, people still honor it." They carried the figurines to the grand Christmas tree, arranging them carefully among the branches. The flickering candlelight reflected off the tiny figures, casting miniature shadows on the polished floor. The hall seemed to lean closer, as if approving the gift, absorbing the memory and the intention behind it. Elellanena stepped back, brushing a gloved hand along the tree. "Each gesture becomes part of the hall's memory," she murmured. "The music, the stories, the decorations, they all weave together into something lasting, gentle, and warm." Thomas nodded, his eyes reflecting the soft glow of candles. "And tonight, the hall welcomes not only its past, but its present. We are witnesses, participants, and caretakers of its story." Outside, the snow continued to shimmer silently under the pale moonlight, while inside, Ashborne Hall glowed with quiet life. The hall, alive with music, memory, and gentle joy, seemed to whisper a promise that even in winter, even in quiet, the spirit of the last Victorian Christmas would endure. Elellanena returned to the windows of the grand hall, drawn by the soft dance of snowflakes drifting past the tall panes. Each flake sparkled like a tiny crystal, catching the flickering candlelight from inside and reflecting it back in delicate ephemeral patterns. Thomas joined her, his breath fogging slightly as he pressed his hand against the cool glass. "The snow makes the world feel slower," Elellanena whispered, "like it's letting us breathe. Let the hall breathe before the festivities tomorrow." Thomas nodded, tracing a finger along the frost edging the window. "It's a quiet reminder of the season, soft, peaceful, patient. The hall seems to encourage reflection tonight." Outside the courtyard lay blanketed in white, smooth and untouched except for the faint trails of birds and the occasional animal venturing from nearby woods. The trees, heavy with snow, swayed gently in the evening breeze, their branches catching the light in delicate icy filigree. Elellanena imagined the hall's past residents gazing at this same scene, marveling at the winter's hush, wrapped in warm coats, sipping spiced tea, and feeling the magic of Christmas. Inside, the glow of the tree and the candlelight reflected in the window panes, merging with the silver shimmer of snow outside. Elellanena felt the contrast keenly, the soft warmth of the hall and the crisp, serene cold of winter. Each element heightened the other. The snow amplified the cozy glow, the firelight softened the icy edges, and the hall's heartbeat carried a gentle melody that matched the rhythm of the falling flakes. Thomas leaned slightly closer, his voice a soft murmur. "Moments like this, they remind us why the hall has lasted. Its presence, its memories, and the care we give it, they all converge here in the stillness of night." Elellanena smiled, feeling the gentle pull of history in every detail. The delicate frost patterns on the window panes, the shimmer of snow on the courtyard statues, and the subtle sway of trees in the silver light. The last Victorian Christmas was alive not only in the decorations and music, but in the very air around them, in the hush of falling snow and in the serene beauty of moonlit memories preserved for generations. For a long moment, they stood in companionable silence, letting the hall, the snow, and the gentle glow of candlelight wash over them. Outside, the world remained quiet and silver. Inside, warmth, memory, and serenity wrapped Elellanena and Thomas in the tender magic of a winter night that would linger in memory forever. Elellanena felt drawn once more to the hidden music room, a sanctuary of melodies waiting quietly in the shadows. The hallways leading there were dark but comforting, illuminated only by the soft flicker of the few candles they carried. Every step echoed faintly against the polished floors, a gentle reminder of the hall's timeless presence. As they entered the music room, the space seemed to embrace them, the faint scent of old wood, varnish, and aged paper wrapping around them like a warm shawl. The harp in the corner glimmered faintly in the candlelight, and the upright piano awaited, its keys slightly cool under Elellenena's gloved touch. Sheet music lay scattered across the shelves, each piece whispering stories of past Christmases, of music played and melodies remembered. Elellanena ran her fingers along the piano keys, producing a soft, hesitant note that resonated through the room. Thomas lifted a delicate music box from a nearby shelf and wound it carefully. A crystalline tune began to play, gentle and soothing, mingling perfectly with the faint echo of the piano key. The hall seemed to respond, a subtle vibration running through the timbers, as if approving the harmony of past and present. They explored the music room slowly, taking care with each sheet of music they touched, each instrument they played. Some pieces were joyful, others melancholic, but every note was deliberate, soothing, and immersive. Elellanena imagined the composers, long-gone residents, watching quietly, pleased that their music had found ears willing to hear and hearts willing to feel. "The hall's music isn't just in the notes," Thomas whispered. "It's in the air, in the walls, in the moments between each sound. That's where the magic lives." Elellanena nodded, letting her fingers glide over the keys, producing a gentle melody that intertwined with the music box's soft tune. Outside, snowflakes brushed against the frosted windows, silvering the night, while inside, the hall's hidden sanctuary thrummed quietly with memory, melody, and a timeless, gentle magic. For a long while, they played in companionable silence, letting the music linger, echo, and settle like a soft, warm blanket. The last Victorian Christmas continued to unfold, its heartbeats of sound and memory filling the hidden corners of Ashborne Hall with serene, enduring life. After leaving the music room, Elellanena and Thomas returned once again to the library, drawn by the comforting glow of the fire. The room was bathed in golden light, the flickering flames sending gentle shadows across the rows of leather-bound books. The air smelled faintly of pine, candle wax, and aged paper, an aroma that felt both nostalgic and soothing. Elellanena sank into the low armchair near the hearth, tucking her hands into the warmth radiating from the fire. Thomas sat opposite her, a small teacup in hand, letting the silence of the library settle around them. Outside, the snow continued to fall softly, a quiet curtain that separated the hall from the world beyond. The occasional hiss of the fire and the faint rustle of pages created a lullaby of soft sounds, perfect for reflection and calm. She picked up a volume of poetry, running her fingers along the gilded letters on the spine before opening it to a random page. The words spoke of winter landscapes, quiet evenings, and the gentle joy of shared warmth. Elellanena read aloud softly, letting the syllables float through the library, blending with the crackle of the fire and the soft hum of the hall itself. Thomas listened quietly, his eyes reflecting the golden light. "It's remarkable," he murmured. "The hall preserves moments like this, the warmth, the stories, the gentle hush of evening. It all lingers, waiting for someone to notice." Elellanena smiled, turning another page. The library felt like a cocoon, a haven where time slowed and memories settled into gentle layers. Each book, each candle, each flicker of light contributed to the hall's heartbeat, a rhythm of comfort, reflection, and serene joy. They remained in companionable silence, sipping tea, listening to the fire, and letting the hall's warmth seep into their bones. Every detail, the scent of pine, the glow of candlelight, the rustle of pages felt magnified in its gentle, calming presence. The last Victorian Christmas was alive in this quiet corner, a celebration not of spectacle, but of memory, warmth, and the serene beauty of a winter evening preserved in time. As the night deepened, Elellanena felt an irresistible pull to return to the grand piano in the main hall. The flickering candlelight painted golden patterns across the polished floors, and the Christmas tree shimmered softly, each ornament reflecting a gentle glow. Outside, the snow continued to drift lazily, silvering the courtyard under the moonlight. Elellanena lifted the piano's lid, her gloved fingers hovering over the keys. Thomas settled beside her, placing a small music box on a nearby table. When wound, it sang a delicate crystalline tune that mingled with the faint creak of the hall and the hushed whisper of falling snow. Elellanena began to play softly, a gentle melody that rose and fell like the wind brushing over the winter landscape outside. The music filled the hall, each note carrying warmth, memory, and a subtle magic that seemed to awaken the very walls. Elellanena imagined the hall itself, breathing in time with the song, the timbers humming, the shadows dancing lightly, and the faint echo of past celebrations blending seamlessly with the present. Thomas watched quietly, occasionally tapping a rhythm on the table, his eyes reflecting the candlelight. "The hall listens," he whispered. "Every note you play becomes part of its story. Every pause, every gentle chord, it's woven into its memory." Elellanena smiled, letting the music guide her. The melody was slow, deliberate, soothing, a lullaby for the hall, for themselves, and for anyone who had ever walked these corridors. Outside, the snowflakes twirled in the moonlight, their soft descent echoing the gentle rhythm of her playing. As the final notes faded, Elellanena rested her hands on the keys, letting the silence that followed be as rich and warm as the music itself. Thomas leaned back, sipping tea, and the two of them shared a quiet smile, knowing that this moment, music, candlelight, snow, and memory, was the heartbeat of the last Victorian Christmas. The hall was alive with calm, reflection, and the gentle magic of winter, a sanctuary of warmth and memory that would linger long after the final note had faded. After the soft winter melody, Elellanena and Thomas returned once more to the grand hall, drawn to the hearth where the fire cast its comforting glow. The flames flickered and danced, sending gentle patterns of light across the polished floor and the ornaments of the Christmas tree. The room was serene, yet alive with quiet anticipation, as if the hall itself awaited the melody of song. Elellanena began softly, her voice carrying the first notes of a familiar Victorian carol. Thomas joined, harmonizing with a gentle, steady warmth. The sound filled the hall, weaving through the tall windows, around the fireplace, and over the polished floors. The golden light of candles reflected on the walls, making the shadows dance in soft, rhythmic patterns as though applauding the music. The fragrance of pine wax and lingering spices mingled with the gentle echo of their voices, creating a rich, soothing atmosphere. Elellanena closed her eyes for a moment, imagining families from generations past standing in the hall, singing in harmony by candlelight, their laughter and joy mingling with the music. The hall seemed to embrace these imagined figures, the walls and timbers absorbing each note, each whispered word of the carol. Thomas's voice blended perfectly with Elellanenna's, each note deliberate, slow, and calming. The music wrapped around them like a warm blanket, the cadence of the carols steady and comforting. Occasionally, the soft hiss of wind against the tall windows punctuated the music, a reminder of the snowstorm still falling outside, serene and unhurried. After several carols, Elellanena paused, letting the final notes linger in the hall. The silence that followed was not empty. It was full, filled with the warmth of memory, the presence of the hall, and the quiet satisfaction of sharing something timeless. "The hall listens," Elellanena whispered, smiling, "and it remembers everything, every song, every note, every gentle moment of joy." Thomas nodded, gazing at the flickering candlelight and the shimmering ornaments of the tree. "We're part of that memory now. Tonight we're carrying it forward." Outside, the snowflakes drifted lazily, silvering the world in quiet magic, while inside the hall hummed softly in response, alive with music, memory, and the tender spirit of the last Victorian Christmas. As the evening deepened and the carols faded, Elellanena and Thomas lingered near the grand fireplace, the soft warmth of the flames wrapping around them. The snow outside had thickened, swirling in delicate, glittering patterns against the darkened windows. The hall seemed to hold its breath, a quiet expectancy settling over every polished surface, every shadowed corner. A soft rap echoed from the front door, gentle yet deliberate. Elellanena exchanged a glance with Thomas, curiosity stirring. Carefully they crossed the hall and opened the door. Outside, a figure stood in the soft, snow-dusted light. A messenger from the nearby village wrapped in a thick cloak, his breath curling in the cold air. "Forgive the late hour," he said, voice muffled by the scarf around his face. "I've come with a small gift for the hall, something to honor the season." Elellanena took the parcel, feeling its weight and the promise contained within. It was a wooden box finely crafted with holly etched into its surface. Inside they found small handcrafted figurines, a tiny sleigh, delicate snowmen, miniature trees, and angels carved from wood, their surfaces smooth and polished. Each piece radiated careful attention and warmth. Thomas set the box gently on the hall table, and Elellanena smiled. "The hall has always been part of the village," she said softly. "Its spirit touches everyone nearby. Even now, in the last Victorian Christmas, people still honor it." They carried the figurines to the grand Christmas tree, arranging them carefully among the branches. The flickering candlelight reflected off the tiny figures, casting miniature shadows on the polished floor. The hall seemed to lean closer, as if approving the gift, absorbing the memory and the intention behind it. Elellanena stepped back, brushing a gloved hand along the tree. "Each gesture becomes part of the hall's memory," she murmured. "The music, the stories, the decorations, they all weave together into something lasting, gentle, and warm." Thomas nodded, his eyes reflecting the soft glow of candles. "And tonight, the hall welcomes not only its past but its present. We are witnesses, participants, and caretakers of its story." Outside, the snow continued to shimmer silently under the pale moonlight, while inside, Ashborne Hall glowed with quiet life. The hall, alive with music, memory, and gentle joy, seemed to whisper a promise that even in winter, even in quiet, the spirit of the last Victorian Christmas would endure. Elellanena returned to the windows of the grand hall, drawn by the soft dance of snowflakes drifting past the tall panes. Each flake sparkled like a tiny crystal, catching the flickering candlelight from inside and reflecting it back in delicate ephemeral patterns. Thomas joined her, his breath fogging slightly as he pressed his hand against the cool glass. "The snow makes the world feel slower," Elellanena whispered, "like it's letting us breathe. Let the hall breathe before the festivities tomorrow." Thomas nodded, tracing a finger along the frost edging the window. "It's a quiet reminder of the season, soft, peaceful, patient. The hall seems to encourage reflection tonight. Outside the courtyard lay, blanketed in white, smooth and untouched, except for the faint trails of birds and the occasional animal venturing from nearby woods. The trees, heavy with snow, swayed gently in the evening breeze, their branches catching the light in delicate, icy filigree. Elellanena imagined the hall's past residents gazing at this same scene, marveling at the winter's hush, wrapped in warm coats, sipping spiced tea, and feeling the magic of Christmas. Inside, the glow of the tree and the candlelight reflected in the window panes, merging with the silver shimmer of snow outside. Elellanena felt the contrast keenly, the soft warmth of the hall and the crisp, serene cold of winter. Each element heightened the other. The snow amplified the cozy glow, the firelight softened the icy edges, and the hall's heartbeat carried a gentle melody that matched the rhythm of the falling flakes. Thomas leaned slightly closer, his voice a soft murmur. "Moments like this, they remind us why the hall has lasted. Its presence, its memories, and the care we give it, they all converge here in the stillness of night." Elellanena smiled, feeling the gentle pull of history in every detail. The delicate frost patterns on the window panes, the shimmer of snow on the courtyard statues, and the subtle sway of trees in the silver light. The last Victorian Christmas was alive not only in the decorations and music, but in the very air around them, in the hush of falling snow, and in the serene beauty of moonlit memories preserved for generations. For a long moment, they stood in companionable silence, letting the hall, the snow, and the gentle glow of candlelight wash over them. Outside, the world remained quiet and silver. Inside, warmth, memory, and serenity wrapped Elellanena and Thomas in the tender magic of a winter night that would linger in memory forever. Drawn once again to the windows, Elellanena moved to the grand hall's northern side, where tall panes offered a sweeping view of the courtyard, bathed in silver moonlight. The snow glimmered like crushed diamonds, smooth and untouched, except for the delicate traces of night birds venturing briefly across the grounds. The trees, heavy with frost, swayed gently in the wind, their branches casting intricate lace-like shadows across the snow. Thomas stepped beside her, carrying a small candle whose warm glow contrasted beautifully with the cool blue of the moonlit snow. "It's almost magical," he murmured. "The hall looks like a painting tonight, frozen yet alive, serene yet full of quiet energy." Elellanena nodded, her eyes tracing the paths between hedges and statues that seemed suspended in the pale light. She could almost hear the faint echoes of carols sung long ago in the courtyard, the laughter of children playing in the snow, and the crunch of boots across icy paths. The moonlight softened every edge, every shadow, creating a world that was calm, still, and deeply enchanting. A gentle wind drifted through the slightly open window, carrying the crisp scent of snow and winter pine. Elellanena inhaled slowly, letting the cold, clean air fill her lungs and invigorate her senses. It mingled with the warmth of the hall behind her, the fire, the soft candlelight, and the lingering aroma of spices from earlier preparations, creating a harmonious balance of warmth and chill inside and out. Thomas leaned slightly closer, speaking in a soft tone. Moments like this, they remind us why the hall has lasted. Its presence, its memories, and the care we give it, they all converge here in the stillness of night. Elellanena smiled, feeling the gentle pull of history in every detail. The delicate frost patterns on the window panes, the shimmer of snow on the courtyard statues, and the subtle sway of trees in the silver light. The last Victorian Christmas was alive not only in the decorations and music, but in the very air around them, in the hush of falling snow, and in the serene beauty of moonlit memories preserved for generations. For a long moment, they stood in quiet companionship, watching the hall breathe, feeling its heartbeat echo through both past and present, and savoring the slow, gentle magic of a winter night that would linger in memory forever. Elellanena felt drawn once more to the hidden music room, a sanctuary of melodies waiting quietly in the shadows. The hallways leading there were dark but comforting, illuminated only by the soft flicker of the few candles they carried. Every step echoed faintly against the polished floors, a gentle reminder of the hall's timeless presence. As they entered the music room, the space seemed to embrace them, the faint scent of old wood, varnish, and aged paper wrapping around them like a warm shawl. The harp in the corner glimmered faintly in the candlelight, and the upright piano awaited, its keys slightly cool under Elellenena's gloved touch. Sheet music lay scattered across the shelves, each piece whispering stories of past Christmases, of music played and melodies remembered. Elellanena ran her fingers along the piano keys, producing a soft, hesitant note that resonated through the room. Thomas lifted a delicate music box from a nearby shelf and wound it carefully. A crystalline tune began to play, gentle and soothing, mingling perfectly with the faint echo of the piano key. The hall seemed to respond, a subtle vibration running through the timbers, as if approving the harmony of past and present. They explored the music room slowly, taking care with each sheet of music they touched, each instrument they played. Some pieces were joyful, others melancholic, but every note was deliberate, soothing, and immersive. Elellanena imagined the composers, long-gone residents, watching quietly, pleased that their music had found ears willing to hear and hearts willing to feel. "The hall's music isn't just in the notes," Thomas whispered. "It's in the air, in the walls, in the moments between each sound. That's where the magic lives." Elellanena nodded, letting her fingers glide over the keys, producing a gentle melody that intertwined with the music box's soft tune. Outside, snowflakes brushed against the frosted windows, silvering the night, while inside, the hall's hidden sanctuary thrummed quietly with memory, melody, and a timeless, gentle magic. For a long while, they played in companionable silence, letting the music linger, echo, and settle like a soft, warm blanket. The last Victorian Christmas continued to unfold, its heartbeats of sound and memory filling the hidden corners of Ashborne Hall with serene, enduring life. After leaving the music room, Elellanena and Thomas returned once again to the library, drawn by the comforting glow of the fire. The room was bathed in golden light, the flickering flames sending gentle shadows across the rows of leather-bound books. The air smelled faintly of pine, candle wax, and aged paper, an aroma that felt both nostalgic and soothing. Elellanena sank into the low armchair near the hearth, tucking her hands into the warmth radiating from the fire. Thomas sat opposite her, a small teacup in hand, letting the silence of the library settle around them. Outside, the snow continued to fall softly, a quiet curtain that separated the hall from the world beyond. The occasional hiss of the fire and the faint rustle of pages created a lullaby of soft sounds, perfect for reflection and calm. She picked up a volume of poetry, running her fingers along the gilded letters on the spine before opening it to a random page. The words spoke of winter landscapes, quiet evenings, and the gentle joy of shared warmth. Elellanena read aloud softly, letting the syllables float through the library, blending with the crackle of the fire and the soft hum of the hall itself. Thomas listened quietly, his eyes reflecting the golden light. "It's remarkable," he murmured. "The hall preserves moments like this, the warmth, the stories, the gentle hush of evening. It all lingers, waiting for someone to notice." Elellanena smiled, turning another page. The library felt like a cocoon, a haven where time slowed and memories settled into gentle layers. Each book, each candle, each flicker of light contributed to the hall's heartbeat, a rhythm of comfort, reflection, and serene joy. They remained in companionable silence, sipping tea, listening to the fire, and letting the hall's warmth seep into their bones. Every detail, the scent of pine, the glow of candlelight, the rustle of pages, felt magnified in its gentle, calming presence. The last Victorian Christmas was alive in this quiet corner, a celebration not of spectacle, but of memory, warmth, and the serene beauty of a winter evening preserved in time. As the night deepened, Elellanena felt an irresistible pull to return to the grand piano in the main hall. The flickering candlelight painted golden patterns across the polished floors, and the Christmas tree shimmered softly, each ornament reflecting a gentle glow. Outside, the snow continued to drift lazily, silvering the courtyard under the moonlight. Elellanena lifted the piano's lid, her gloved fingers hovering over the keys. Thomas settled beside her, placing a small music box on a nearby table. When wound, it sang a delicate crystalline tune that mingled with the faint creak of the hall and the hushed whisper of falling snow. Elellanena began to play softly, a gentle melody that rose and fell like the wind brushing over the winter landscape outside. The music filled the hall, each note carrying warmth, memory, and a subtle magic that seemed to awaken the very walls. Elellanena imagined the hall itself breathing in time with the song, the timbers humming, the shadows dancing lightly, and the faint echo of past celebrations blending seamlessly with the present. Thomas watched quietly, occasionally tapping a rhythm on the table, his eyes reflecting the candlelight. "The hall listens," he whispered. "Every note you play becomes part of its story. Every pause, every gentle chord, it's woven into its memory." Elellanena smiled, letting the music guide her. The melody was slow, deliberate, soothing, a lullaby for the hall, for themselves, and for anyone who had ever walked these corridors. Outside, the snowflakes twirled in the moonlight, their soft descent echoing the gentle rhythm of her playing. As the final notes faded, Elellanena rested her hands on the keys, letting the silence that followed be as rich and warm as the music itself. Thomas leaned back sipping tea, and the two of them shared a quiet smile, knowing that this moment, music, candlelight, snow, and memory, was the heartbeat of the last Victorian Christmas. The hall was alive with calm, reflection, and the gentle magic of winter, a sanctuary of warmth and memory that would linger long after the final note had faded. After the soft winter melody, Elellanena and Thomas returned once more to the grand hall. drawn to the hearth where the fire cast its comforting glow. The flames flickered and danced, sending gentle patterns of light across the polished floor and the ornaments of the Christmas tree. The room was serene, yet alive with quiet anticipation, as if the hall itself awaited the melody of song. Elellanena began softly, her voice carrying the first notes of a familiar Victorian carol. Thomas joined, harmonizing with a gentle, steady warmth. The sound filled the hall, weaving through the tall windows, around the fireplace, and over the polished floors. The golden light of candles reflected on the walls, making the shadows dance in soft, rhythmic patterns, as though applauding the music. The fragrance of pine wax and lingering spices mingled with the gentle echo of their voices, creating a rich, soothing atmosphere. Elellanena closed her eyes for a moment, imagining families from generations past standing in the hall, singing in harmony by candlelight, their laughter and joy mingling with the music. The hall seemed to embrace these imagined figures, the walls and timbers absorbing each note, each whispered word of the carol. Thomas's voice blended perfectly with Elellanenna's, each note deliberate, slow, and calming. The music wrapped around them like a warm blanket, the cadence of the carols steady and comforting. Occasionally, the soft hiss of wind against the tall windows punctuated the music, a reminder of the snowstorm still falling outside, serene and unhurried. After several carols, Elellanena paused, letting the final notes linger in the hall. The silence that followed was not empty. It was full, filled with the warmth of memory, the presence of the hall, and the quiet satisfaction of sharing something timeless. "The hall listens," Elellanena whispered, smiling, "and it remembers everything, every song, every note, every gentle moment of joy." Thomas nodded, gazing at the flickering candlelight and the shimmering ornaments of the tree. "We're part of that memory now. Tonight, we're carrying it forward." Outside, the snowflakes drifted lazily, silvering the world in quiet magic, while inside the hall hummed softly in response, alive with music, memory, and the tender spirit of the last Victorian Christmas. As the evening deepened and the carols faded, Elellanena and Thomas lingered near the grand fireplace, the soft warmth of the flames wrapping around them. The snow outside had thickened, swirling in delicate, glittering patterns against the darkened windows. The hall seemed to hold its breath, a quiet expectancy settling over every polished surface, every shadowed corner. A soft rap echoed from the front door, gentle yet deliberate. Elellanena exchanged a glance with Thomas, curiosity stirring. Carefully they crossed the hall and opened the door. Outside, a figure stood in the soft, snow-dusted light, a messenger from the nearby village wrapped in a thick cloak, his breath curling in the cold air. "Forgive the late hour," he said, voice muffled by the scarf around his face. "I've come with a small gift for the hall, something to honor the season." Elellanena took the parcel, feeling its weight and the promise contained within. It was a wooden box finely crafted with holly etched into its surface. Inside they found small handcrafted figurines, a tiny sleigh, delicate snowmen, miniature trees, and angels carved from wood, their surfaces smooth and polished. Each piece radiated careful attention and warmth. Thomas set the box gently on the hall table, and Elellanena smiled. "The hall has always been part of the village," she said softly. "Its spirit touches everyone nearby. Even now, in the last Victorian Christmas, people still honor it." They carried the figurines to the grand Christmas tree, arranging them carefully among the branches. The flickering candlelight reflected off the tiny figures, casting miniature shadows on the polished floor. The hall seemed to lean closer, as if approving the gift, absorbing the memory and the intention behind it. Elellanena stepped back, brushing a gloved hand along the tree. "Each gesture becomes part of the hall's memory," she murmured. "The music, the stories, the decorations, they all weave together into something lasting, gentle, and warm." Thomas nodded, his eyes reflecting the soft glow of candles. "And tonight, the hall welcomes not only its past, but its present. We are witnesses, participants, and caretakers of its story." Outside, the snow continued to shimmer silently under the pale moonlight, while inside, Ashborne Hall glowed with quiet life. The hall, alive with music, memory, and gentle joy, seemed to whisper a promise that even in winter, even in quiet, the spirit of the last Victorian Christmas would endure. Elellanena returned to the windows of the grand hall, drawn by the soft dance of snowflakes drifting past the tall panes. Each flake sparkled like a tiny crystal, catching the flickering candlelight from inside and reflecting it back in delicate ephemeral patterns. Thomas joined her, his breath fogging slightly as he pressed his hand against the cool glass. "The snow makes the world feel slower," Elellanena whispered, "like it's letting us breathe. Let the hall breathe before the festivities tomorrow." Thomas nodded, tracing a finger along the frost edging the window. "It's a quiet reminder of the season, soft, peaceful, patient. The hall seems to encourage reflection tonight. Outside the courtyard lay blanketed in white, smooth and untouched except for the faint trails of birds and the occasional animal venturing from nearby woods. The trees, heavy with snow, swayed gently in the evening breeze, their branches catching the light in delicate icy filigree. Elellanena imagined the hall's past residents gazing at this same scene, marveling at the winter's hush, wrapped in warm coats, sipping spiced tea and feeling the magic of Christmas. Inside, the glow of the tree and the candlelight reflected in the window panes, merging with the silver shimmer of snow outside. Elellanena felt the contrast keenly, the soft warmth of the hall and the crisp, serene cold of winter. Each element heightened the other. The snow amplified the cozy glow, the firelight softened the icy edges, and the hall's heartbeat carried a gentle melody that matched the rhythm of the falling flakes. Thomas leaned slightly closer, his voice a soft murmur. "Moments like this, they remind us why the hall has lasted. Its presence, its memories, and the care we give it, they all converge here in the stillness of night." Elellanena smiled, feeling the gentle pull of history in every detail. The delicate frost patterns on the window panes, the shimmer of snow on the courtyard statues, and the subtle sway of trees in the silver light. The last Victorian Christmas was alive not only in the decorations and music, but in the very air around them, in the hush of falling snow, and in the serene beauty of moonlit memories preserved for generations. For a long moment, they stood in companionable silence, letting the hall, the snow, and the gentle glow of candlelight wash over them. Outside, the world remained quiet and silver. Inside, warmth, memory, and serenity wrapped Elellanena and Thomas in the tender magic of a winter night that would linger in memory forever. Feeling a renewed sense of wonder, Elellanena suggested they explore the conservatory, a room she had seldom visited. They crossed the hall quietly, the flickering candlelight from the corridors guiding their steps. As they entered, the soft crunch of snow tracked from the courtyard beneath their boots reminded them of the world beyond the hall's warm embrace. The conservatory was a serene winter wonderland. Frost had etched delicate patterns on the tall glass panes, each one unique, swirls, leaves, and intricate geometric designs sparkling faintly in the candlelight. The room smelled faintly of damp earth, winter blooms pressed under glass, and a subtle hint of citrus left behind from seasonal decorations. Elellanena stepped carefully among the potted evergreens and holly bushes, their branches dusted with snow, glimmering as the candlelight danced across their needles. A few tiny winter blooms peeked shyly from the corners, their petals delicate and frozen in a moment of quiet beauty. Thomas followed, pausing to trace his fingers along a frost-lined windowsill. Even here the hall's memory lingers. Elellanena whispered, her breath fogging the glass as she pressed a gloved hand to it. It's like every corner is alive, waiting to be noticed, to be remembered. Thomas smiled, adjusting the small lantern they had brought. The light reflected off the icy panes, creating miniature rainbows that danced gently across the tiled floor. A faint gust of wind rustled the potted plants, carrying a whisper of the courtyard's snow and the hall's winter magic into the room. Elellanena found a small bench near the center, its surface frosted but inviting. She sat, letting the soft cold seep into her fingers, while Thomas placed a warm cup of tea beside her. They sat in quiet companionship, listening to the occasional creak of the hall settling, the soft patter of snowflakes against the glass, and the distant echo of music from the grand hall. "This room feels suspended," Thomas murmured, "like a place outside of time where the hall keeps its winter secrets safe." Elellanena nodded, savoring the serene beauty. The conservatory with its frosted windows, delicate plants, and gentle winter light became a quiet sanctuary, a place to pause, reflect, and feel the heartbeat of the last Victorian Christmas resonate in every shimmer of frost, every muted sound, and every soft, lingering scent of the season. After the serene visit to the conservatory, Elellanena and Thomas returned to the drawing room, where the last hints of twilight filtered through the tall curtained windows. The room was elegantly furnished with velvet armchairs, polished tables, and a soft carpet that muted their footsteps. The Christmas tree glowed warmly in the corner, its ornaments reflecting the gentle flicker of candles along the mantelpiece. Elellanena sank into an armchair near the fire, letting the comforting warmth wrap around her. The scent of pine and melted wax filled the room, mingling with faint traces of vanilla and cinnamon from the afternoon baking. Outside, snowflakes drifted lazily, catching the fading light and sparkling like scattered diamonds. Thomas joined her, settling into the chair across from her, and together they allowed the silence of the hall to envelope them. The faint crackle of the fire, the soft shuffle of distant footsteps from elsewhere in the hall, and the gentle murmur of the winter wind created a lullaby of subtle sounds, soothing and calm. Elellanena glanced around the room, noticing the small details, the delicate carvings on the fireplace, the soft sheen of polished wood, and the glint of candlelight across crystal ornaments. Each detail seemed to carry a story, a memory, a quiet echo of Christmases past. She imagined long ago occupants of the hall sitting in these same chairs, their laughter and conversation blending into the walls preserved in time. Thomas spoke softly, breaking the silence. "The hall's alive tonight, Elellanena, not just with memory, but with presence. Every corner, every object, every candle, it's all part of the heartbeat of this last Victorian Christmas." Elellanena smiled, letting the warmth of the fire seep into her hands. "It feels like the hall is sharing itself with us, slowly, gently, showing us its past while letting us be part of the present." They lingered there, sipping tea and listening to the quiet. Outside, the snow continued to fall, and inside the drawing room glowed with soft light, warmth, and the gentle presence of history. It was a moment suspended between past and present, where the hall's memory, the Christmas spirit, and the serenity of winter coalesced into a soothing, timeless embrace. As night fully settled over Ashborne Hall, Elellanena and Thomas found themselves walking slowly through the hallways, the soft glow of candlelight illuminating their path. The snow outside glimmered under the pale moon, a quiet, endless blanket that seemed to mute the world beyond the hall. Every corridor, every staircase, every archway whispered with memories, the gentle creak of the floorboards mingling with the soft hum of winter wind outside. Elellanena paused near a tall window, gazing out at the courtyard. The snow glistened silver under the moonlight, untouched except for the faint trails of birds and animals that had passed earlier. The trees, heavy with snow, swayed gently in the evening breeze, their branches catching the light in delicate icy filigree. She pressed her gloved hand to the cold glass, feeling the serene energy of the night seep into her. Thomas stepped beside her, carrying a small lantern that cast a warm, golden glow. "The hall is at peace tonight," he whispered. "Even in its stillness, it's alive with memory." Elellanena nodded. "It feels like the world has paused," she said softly. "The snow, the firelight, the silence. It's as if the hall wants us to notice every detail, to feel the heartbeat of the past and present at the same time." They wandered slowly through the corridors, stopping occasionally to glance at a framed portrait, a polished table, or a softly glowing candle. Every corner seemed to respond to their presence, the shadows shifting gently, as if acknowledging their care and attention. The hall's memory was tangible, alive yet calm, embracing them in a gentle, timeless rhythm. At last, they returned to the grand hall, standing quietly near the Christmas tree. The flickering candlelight illuminated the ornaments, the golden glow reflecting across the polished floors. Elellanena inhaled deeply, savoring the warmth, the scent of pine, and the soft hum of history that filled the space. "This," she whispered, "is the heart of Ashborne Hall tonight, the calm, the light, the memory. It's all here, and we are part of it." Thomas nodded, his eyes reflecting the soft glow. "And we carry it forward. Every gentle sound, every flicker of light, every memory preserved, it's ours now to honor." Outside, the snow continued its quiet descent, while inside the hall pulsed softly with warmth, presence, and the tender magic of the last Victorian Christmas. Drawn once again to the windows, Elellanena moved to the grand hall's northern side, where tall panes offered a sweeping view of the courtyard, bathed in silver moonlight. The snow glimmered like crushed diamonds, smooth and untouched, except for the delicate traces of nightbirds venturing briefly across the grounds. The trees, heavy with frost, swayed gently in the wind, their branches casting intricate lace-like shadows across the snow. Thomas stepped beside her, carrying a small candle whose warm glow contrasted beautifully with the cool blue of the moonlit snow. "It's almost magical," he murmured. "The hall looks like a painting tonight, frozen yet alive, serene yet full of quiet energy." Elellanena nodded, her eyes tracing the paths between hedges and statues that seemed suspended in the pale light. She could almost hear the faint echoes of carols sung long ago in the courtyard, the laughter of children playing in the snow, and the crunch of boots across icy paths. The moonlight softened every edge, every shadow, creating a world that was calm, still, and deeply enchanting. A gentle wind drifted through the slightly open window, carrying the crisp scent of snow and winter pine. Elellanena inhaled slowly, letting the cold, clean air fill her lungs and invigorate her senses. It mingled with the warmth of the hall behind her, the fire, the soft candlelight, and the lingering aroma of spices from earlier preparations, creating a harmonious balance of warmth and chill, inside and out. Thomas leaned slightly closer, speaking in a soft tone. Moments like this, they remind us why the hall has lasted. Its presence, its memories, and the care we give it, they all converge here in the stillness of night. Elellanena smiled, feeling the gentle pull of history in every detail. The delicate frost patterns on the window panes, the shimmer of snow on the courtyard statues, and the subtle sway of trees in the silver light. The last Victorian Christmas was alive not only in the decorations and music, but in the very air around them, in the hush of falling snow, and in the serene beauty of moonlit memories preserved for generations. For a long moment they stood in quiet companionship, watching the hall breathe, feeling its heartbeat echo through both past and present, and savoring the slow, gentle magic of a winter night that would linger in memory forever. Elellanena felt drawn once more to the hidden music room, a sanctuary of melodies waiting quietly in the shadows. The hallways leading there were dark but comforting, illuminated only by the soft flicker of the few candles they carried. Every step echoed faintly against the polished floors, a gentle reminder of the hall's timeless presence. As they entered the music room, the space seemed to embrace them, the faint scent of old wood, varnish, and aged paper wrapping around them like a warm shawl. The harp in the corner glimmered faintly in the candlelight, and the upright piano awaited, its keys slightly cool under Elellanenna's gloved touch. Sheet music lay scattered across the shelves, each piece whispering stories of past Christmases, of music played and melodies remembered. Elellanena ran her fingers along the piano keys, producing a soft, hesitant note that resonated through the room. Thomas lifted a delicate music box from a nearby shelf and wound it carefully. A crystalline tune began to play, gentle and soothing, mingling perfectly with the faint echo of the piano key. The hall seemed to respond, a subtle vibration running through the timbers, as if approving the harmony of past and present. They explored the music room slowly, taking care with each sheet of music they touched, each instrument they played. Some pieces were joyful, others melancholic, but every note was deliberate, soothing, and immersive. Elellanena imagined the composers, long-gone residents, watching quietly, pleased that their music had found ears willing to hear and hearts willing to feel. "The hall's music isn't just in the notes," Thomas whispered. "It's in the air, in the walls, in the moments between each sound. That's where the magic lives." Elellanena nodded, letting her fingers glide over the keys, producing a gentle melody that intertwined with the music box's soft tune. Outside, snowflakes brushed against the frosted windows, silvering the night, while inside, the hall's hidden sanctuary thrummed quietly with memory, melody, and a timeless, gentle magic. For a long while, they played in companionable silence, letting the music linger, echo, and settle like a soft, warm blanket. The last Victorian Christmas continued to unfold, its heartbeats of sound and memory filling the hidden corners of Ashborne Hall with serene, enduring life. After leaving the music room, Elellanena and Thomas returned once again to the library, drawn by the comforting glow of the fire. The room was bathed in golden light, the flickering flames sending gentle shadows across the rows of leather-bound books. The air smelled faintly of pine, candle wax, and aged paper, an aroma that felt both nostalgic and soothing. Elellanena sank into the low armchair near the hearth, tucking her hands into the warmth radiating from the fire. Thomas sat opposite her, a small teacup in hand, letting the silence of the library settle around them. Outside, the snow continued to fall softly, a quiet curtain that separated the hall from the world beyond. The occasional hiss of the fire and the faint rustle of pages created a lullaby of soft sounds, perfect for reflection and calm. She picked up a volume of poetry, running her fingers along the gilded letters on the spine before opening it to a random page. The words spoke of winter landscapes, quiet evenings, and the gentle joy of shared warmth. Elellanena read aloud softly, letting the syllables float through the library, blending with the crackle of the fire and the soft hum of the hall itself. Thomas listened quietly, his eyes reflecting the golden light. "It's remarkable," he murmured. "The hall preserves moments like this. The warmth, the stories, the gentle hush of evening. It all lingers, waiting for someone to notice." Elellanena smiled, turning another page. The library felt like a cocoon, a haven where time slowed and memories settled into gentle layers. Each book, each candle, each flicker of light contributed to the hall's heartbeat, a rhythm of comfort, reflection, and serene joy. They remained in companionable silence, sipping tea, listening to the fire, and letting the hall's warmth seep into their bones. Every detail, the scent of pine, the glow of candlelight, the rustle of pages, felt magnified in its gentle, calming presence. The last Victorian Christmas was alive in this quiet corner, a celebration not of spectacle, but of memory, warmth, and the serene beauty of a winter evening preserved in time. As the night deepened, Elellanena felt an irresistible pull to return to the grand piano in the main hall. The flickering candlelight painted golden patterns across the polished floors, and the Christmas tree shimmered softly, each ornament reflecting a gentle glow. Outside, the snow continued to drift lazily, silvering the courtyard under the moonlight. Elellanena lifted the piano's lid, her gloved fingers hovering over the keys. Thomas settled beside her, placing a small music box on a nearby table. When wound, it sang a delicate crystalline tune that mingled with the faint creak of the hall and the hushed whisper of falling snow. Elellanena began to play softly, a gentle melody that rose and fell like the wind brushing over the winter landscape outside. The music filled the hall, each note carrying warmth, memory, and a subtle magic that seemed to awaken the very walls. Elellanena imagined the hall itself, breathing in time with the song, the timbers humming, the shadows dancing lightly, and the faint echo of past celebrations blending seamlessly with the present. Thomas watched quietly, occasionally tapping a rhythm on the table, his eyes reflecting the candlelight. "The hall listens," he whispered. "Every note you play becomes part of its story. Every pause, every gentle chord, it's woven into its memory." Elellanena smiled, letting the music guide her. The melody was slow, deliberate, soothing, a lullaby for the hall, for themselves, and for anyone who had ever walked these corridors. Outside, the snowflakes twirled in the moonlight, their soft descent echoing the gentle rhythm of her playing. As the final notes faded, Elellanena rested her hands on the keys, letting the silence that followed be as rich and warm as the music itself. Thomas leaned back, sipping tea, and the two of them shared a quiet smile, knowing that this moment, music, candlelight, snow, and memory, was the heartbeat of the last Victorian Christmas. The hall was alive with calm, reflection, and the gentle magic of winter, a sanctuary of warmth and memory that would linger long after the final note had faded. After the soft winter melody, Elellanena and Thomas returned once more to the grand hall, drawn to the hearth where the fire cast its comforting glow. The flames flickered and danced, sending gentle patterns of light across the polished floor and the ornaments of the Christmas tree. The warmth wrapped around them like a soft blanket, chasing away the crisp chill of the winter night outside. Elellanena sank into the armchair closest to the hearth, tucking her hands near the warmth. She inhaled deeply, savoring the mingling scents of burning pine, beeswax, and the lingering aroma of the snow-dusted courtyard. Thomas settled into the nearby chair, holding a small cup of tea, letting the quiet of the hall envelop them both. Outside, the snow shimmered under the pale moonlight, each flake catching the glow of the windows, sparkling like tiny crystals. The distant echo of winter wind brushed against the tall panes, blending with the faint crackle of the fire to create a soothing rhythmic sound. Elellanena listened to it all, feeling the hall's gentle heartbeat in every creak, every sigh, every flicker of shadow and light. She traced her gloved fingers along the arm of her chair, imagining past occupants sitting in the same spot, sipping warm drinks, reading letters, or sharing quiet conversation as snow blanketed the grounds. The hall had always preserved these gentle moments, layering them like delicate embroidery over the fabric of each room. Thomas broke the silence softly. "The fire isn't just warmth," he murmured. "It's memory, comfort, and life all in one. The hall shares it with us because we notice, because we honor it." Elellanena nodded, letting her gaze wander to the dancing shadows. The last Victorian Christmas was not measured in grand gestures or bustling crowds, but in these small, luminous moments, the flicker of firelight, the hush of snow, the warmth of tea, and the gentle presence of someone who shared in the magic. They remained there for a long while, letting the glow and quietness sink deeply into their hearts. Outside, the night remained serene, and inside, Ashborne Hall thrummed softly with life, warmth, and the enduring tender magic of Christmas. After spending some time by the fire, Elellanena suggested a slow walk through the courtyard to fully appreciate the snow-draped grounds. Thomas nodded, grabbing their cloaks from the hallway stand, and together they stepped into the crisp night air. The contrast between the warmth inside the hall and the icy tranquility outside was invigorating, yet calming, like a gentle breath of winter filling their lungs. The courtyard was transformed into a glittering wonderland. Snow lay thickly across the stone pathways, muffling each footstep, while the moonlight turned every branch, fountain, and statue into a silver silhouette. Tiny icicles hung from the edges of the balustrades, catching the glow of the candlelight from the windows, refracting it into miniature rainbows that danced across the snow. The air smelled of crisp winter pine and the faint trace of wood smoke from the hall's chimneys. Elellanenna's gloved hands traced the frost on a marble fountain, and she could almost hear the soft splash of water from summers past, frozen now into silence. Thomas bent down to examine delicate animal tracks in the snow, squirrels or perhaps a fox, and they imagined tiny creatures venturing across the courtyard under the blanket of night. The hall loomed around them, majestic and patient, its stone walls absorbing the soft silver light. Each window glowed warmly, promising the safety and serenity of the rooms inside. Elellanena paused to look up at the upper balconies, imagining children leaning over to catch falling snowflakes, their laughter muffled but alive within the walls. A gentle wind stirred the trees, sending a few flakes cascading like tiny stars around them. The branches swayed softly, bending under the weight of snow, while the scent of pine filled the air more strongly with every step they took. Elellanena breathed deeply, savoring the mingling sensations of cold and warmth, silence and memory. Thomas gestured to a bench near the center of the courtyard, dusted with a fine layer of snow. They sat side by side, letting the peacefulness of the night sink into their bones. He took her hand, their gloves brushing lightly, and Elellanena felt the quiet magic of the moment, how the hall, the snow, the moonlight, and their own presence had woven together into a perfect tableau of serenity. "The hall seems endless," Thomas whispered. "But tonight, every corner, every shadow, every flake of snow feels intimate, like it's just for us." Elellanena nodded, gazing up at the moonlit sky and the softly glimmering courtyard. She could almost hear echoes of carols, footsteps, and laughter from centuries past, layered seamlessly with the present. The snow under their boots, the crisp air, and the soft hush of winter created a gentle lullaby, carrying the heartbeat of Ashborne Hall into the night. They remained there, silent and reflective, allowing the courtyard's soft magic to fill them completely. The hall, dressed in snow and silver moonlight, seemed to watch over them with a quiet, enduring presence, its last Victorian Christmas unfolding, not in haste, but in slow, luminous wonder. After their peaceful walk in the courtyard, Elellanena and Thomas ascended the grand staircase to the upper chambers, where the hall's private rooms rested in quiet dignity. The stairs creaked softly under their feet, each sound a gentle reminder of the hall's age, its history settling around them like a comforting cloak. Candle sconces lined the corridor, their flames flickering in subtle rhythms, casting moving shadows along the walls adorned with faded tapestries and portraits of long-gone ancestors. The air grew cooler here, tinged with the faint scent of lavender from dried sachets tucked into drawers long ago. Elellanena ran her fingers along the polished banister, feeling the subtle grooves left by countless hands over decades. Each step felt deliberate, a slow rhythm allowing them to notice the delicate details, the carved frames, the soft sheen of polished floors, the quiet hum of the hall itself, alive yet serene. They entered one of the guest chambers, a modest yet elegantly furnished room with a four-poster bed draped in faded velvet curtains. A small writing desk sat beneath the window, the moonlight filtering in softly, illuminating quills, inkwells, and scattered parchment that seemed frozen in time. Elellanena breathed in the scent of aged paper and wood polish, feeling the room's calm and the memories it held. Thomas approached the window, brushing lightly against the frosted pane. "From up here," he murmured, "the hall feels even more alive. Every room, every corridor, every echo, it's all part of a living rhythm." Elellanena wandered to the bed, running her hands over the thick blankets, imagining the quiet slumber of families long past. The hall's winter magic seemed most palpable here in the gentle hush, the faint creak of floorboards in other chambers, and the soft whisper of wind against the windows. It was as if the house itself had paused, allowing them to move slowly, breathe deeply, and absorb every moment. She opened a small chest at the foot of the bed and discovered delicate ornaments, remnants of Christmases past, a tiny porcelain angel, a brass bell, and ribbons of deep crimson. Elellanena held each piece carefully, feeling the weight of memory and the warmth of tradition preserved through time. Thomas joined her, settling into a nearby chair. They sat in companionable silence, listening to the soft sighs of the hall, the distant murmur of snow settling on the roof, and the faint hum of the rooms around them. The last Victorian Christmas was present not only in the music, the tree, or the firelight, but in these quiet chambers where time slowed and the gentle heartbeat of Ashborne Hall became a soft, unbroken lullaby. Elellanena and Thomas lingered in the upper corridor, the hush of midnight enveloping them like a soft, comforting blanket. The moonlight filtered through the tall windows, painting delicate silver patterns across the polished wooden floors. Shadows of the portraits and tapestries stretched long and fluid, shifting gently with the flicker of candlelight from the sconces along the hallway. The hall seemed to breathe with them, every creak and sigh of the timber resonating like a soft, measured heartbeat. They paused at a landing overlooking the grand hall below. From this height, the tree glowed softly, its ornaments shimmering like captured starlight. The firelight flickered against the polished floor, and the faint echoes of music they had played earlier lingered in the air, faint but comforting. Elellanena leaned lightly on the railing, feeling the warmth of the candlelight and the faint chill of night merging around her. Thomas stood beside her, gazing at the snow-blanketed courtyard. "It's remarkable," he murmured. "Every corner of this hall carries memory of laughter, of music, of quiet winter nights, and now it carries ours as well." Elellanena nodded, her eyes tracing the intricate frost on the windows, the delicate patterns etched by the cold night air. She imagined families from centuries past gazing out at the same moonlit snow, sharing whispered stories, lighting candles, and quietly celebrating the season. The hall preserved each of these moments, layering them like a soft tapestry rich with warmth and life, despite the chill outside. She turned her attention to the small writing desk beneath the window, where scattered parchment and faded quills rested. Picking up one sheet, she traced the delicate handwriting and imagined the hand that once wrote it, a long-ago resident, perhaps preparing notes for a holiday letter or composing a small poem to capture the quiet magic of winter. Elellanena felt a deep connection to these past lives, a sense of continuity and presence that was both humbling and comforting. Thomas placed a hand lightly on the railing. "This is why the hall feels alive tonight," he said softly. "It isn't just the decorations, the tree, or the snow. It's the memory, the presence, and the care we bring. That's what gives it life." They lingered there for a long while, letting the hall's quiet magic surround them. Every sound, the soft hiss of wind, the faint creak of floorboards, the distant whisper of snow merged into a gentle lullaby. Elellanena felt her pulse slow, her mind quiet, and her heart fill with warmth. The last Victorian Christmas had reached its serene crescendo, a gentle, timeless moment of reflection, peace, and presence preserved in the heart of Ashborne Hall. The clock in the grand hall chimed softly, its deep resonant tone echoing through Ashborne Hall, marking the arrival of the deepest hours of Christmas night. Elellanena and Thomas moved slowly through the hallways, their footsteps muted by the thick rugs and polished floors, every sound blending seamlessly with the hush of winter outside. The snow glimmered under the moonlight, casting silvery reflections through the tall windows and onto the glistening ornaments of the Christmas tree. Elellanena paused by the grand fireplace, letting her hand brush the warm mantle. The flames flickered gently, their soft glow casting dancing shadows on the walls, each one telling its own story. The scent of pine, beeswax, and lingering winter spices enveloped them, a comforting embrace that seemed to carry the hall's heartbeat through every timber and stone. Thomas set a small lantern on the nearby table, its golden glow mingling with the firelight to create a serene cocoon of warmth. They moved to the Christmas tree, now radiating soft, tranquil light. Elellanena carefully touched a ribboned ornament, imagining the hands that had placed it there long ago. Each decoration seemed to hum with quiet memory, each glimmer a note in the hall's gentle, enduring song. Thomas adjusted a small figurine on the tree, a tiny sleigh that now caught the candlelight perfectly. Sitting together near the hearth, they allowed themselves to reflect on the day. The music in the hidden room, the soft carols echoing through the grand hall, the serene beauty of the frosted conservatory, and the quiet magic of the courtyard under moonlit snow. Every experience, every sight and sound had woven together into a slow, immersive tapestry of comfort, warmth, and gentle wonder. Outside, snowflakes continued their graceful descent, silvering the landscape and muffling the world in quiet calm. Inside the hall seemed to exhale, embracing Elellanena and Thomas in a gentle, timeless hush. It was as if Ashborne Hall itself were whispering a blessing, thanking them for honoring its memories and allowing them to be part of its story. Elellanena rested her head against Thomas's shoulder, the warmth of fire and hall wrapping around them like a protective, loving blanket. The last Victorian Christmas was complete, not with grand spectacle, but with quiet reflection, gentle presence, and the serene magic of a world paused in perfect harmony. The hall, alive with memories, candlelight, and snow-kissed silence, settled into the night. Elellanena and Thomas closed their eyes, letting the soft hum of the hall, the distant whispers of snow, and the lingering warmth carry them gently toward rest. The timeless beauty of Christmas preserved in every corner, every shadow, and every soft glimmer of light promised peace, comfort, and dreams, filled with the quiet magic of Ashborne Hall. Thank you, dear viewer, for joining Elellanena and Thomas on this journey through the last Victorian Christmas at Ashborne Hall. Let the calm of the hall, the soft glow of candlelight, and the serene hush of winter settle gently over you. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and allow the warmth, memories, and quiet magic of the season to guide you toward peaceful rest. Wherever you are watching from, be it the U.S., Europe, or beyond, may this story carry a gentle lullaby across the miles. Let your heart linger in the soft embrace of snow, firelight, and the serene presence of timeless moments. Sleep now gently and dream of candlelit halls, soft carols, and the tranquil magic of a winter night. Until next time, may peace, warmth, and the quiet beauty of Christmas fill your dreams.